All right, gang. Professor McElroy here. I just unmuted myself. I have my desktop share turned on here so we can get into our intro to web design class, our web design 1 class. Just to give you a really quick intro, we're gonna have kind of a crunch tonight. So kind of potty breaks as you need to, but we're just gonna keep kind of grinding here a little bit because I have a lot of topics I want to get over and out of the way tonight and start kind of diving into a little bit of code and a little bit of building stuff. And so I want to do that physically with you guys tonight. So like I said, I'm Professor McElroy. I've been here full-time with Hodges since 2011. I was an adjunct in 2004. My first job as a designer was in a web and multimedia company in 1998. I know I don't look that old, but I've been around for quite a while doing design. I am a designer by trade. So I am a web designer. Web design 1 or, okay, wrong class. It's okay. I'm a designer by trade. So logo designs, ads, websites, anything that visually communicates a brand. I do social media stuff, all that good stuff. So I'm a visual person. So we are going to learn brochure style website design is what I call it. It's a website that you would build for any product or service that needs to be on the web and needs to have, in essence, a online brochure, 4 or 5 pages, some basic information about a product or service, a contact form, maybe an interactive map, some basic things. This is only a web design 1 class, so don't get overly nervous when you start to see a little bit of coding and everything, because I'm going to try to spoon feed it to you a little bit. We're going to take little micro skills at a time, and hopefully in the end, you'll feel comfortable with building kind of a basic website build. So that dives us right into the Canvas course shell. For Web Design 1. Has everyone taken a Hodges course before? Yes, okay, good. So everyone has seen the Canvas layout, which is good. Okay, this is no different. Hopefully the blueprint that Hodges has for building Hodges courses online kind of looks consistent and similar to what you've seen before. Announcement sections, syllabus, modules, those top 4 things there with the home page are the things we're going to navigate through the most in this course. You have the assignment section. I try to do a really good job at labeling due dates, what we're working on, how we're going to navigate through the course. We are going to use Adobe Dreamweaver as our software application of choice. It is an HTML editor and an FTP uploader, and that's kind of what we need to do. We need to be able to build and edit web pages, and we need to understand the connection between your computer and what the world sees. And that's an FTP editor. There's lots of applications out there. We use the Adobe one because it's the one that's tied to the Adobe Creative Cloud, and it's what designers use, marketing people use, people that are tied to the brand and need to promote and market the brand. On the IT side of the house, there's many tools and many products that IT professionals use for editing and manipulating code. We just choose Dreamweaver. I think it's a pretty easy quotation mark tool to use once you kind of know what you're looking for and where you're hunting and pecking when you're creating pages of such. The announcement section is one that I leverage heavily. You'll see student samples, you'll see announcements, you'll see files that I want to share with you. I use the announcement section like I would use the blast email. Canvas isn't as easy as Blackboard, our old content management system, for sending out a blast email to all the students. So I use the announcement section because it's an easier way for me to post something that everyone can see. How many have more than 1 class this month at the university? Thank goodness. Last month I had a student with 2 courses. 2 courses can be a bit challenging in 4 weeks. Doesn't mean it's impossible, just means it can be a bit challenging at times. So good, you'll be able to concentrate on web design and on learning the basics of writing some HTML, which is very good. So please make sure you're in your course section consistently. And I would say a couple of times a week as you're working on projects or working on things, check the announcement section because I might be putting something out there. I might be posting something I recorded on my desktop because a student had a question. It was just easier for me to record my desktop and post it out there. I try to share a lot of things via the announcement section for the class. Traditionally, I have 20 students in this class. There's only 10 in this cohort. So this is like a beautiful thing. So I'm really good at responding to students anyway. But when there's half the number for the course I normally have, I feel really good that we'll be able to plug through and you'll kind of learn a nugget. The beauty about design is that hopefully anytime you take a course, whether it's IT or GRA or any of those, you at least get one little piece of nugget that you can take with you for potential employment skill set. Maybe you're currently working somewhere and it's a skill you might be able to add to your job description. Hopefully that this course is like that. I've had so many students in this program, this course, that weren't even in any technology program. I've had health information management. I've had business marketing. I've had all kinds of students that are interested in web design. And sometimes when they leave the place they're currently employed at, need someone to help them manipulate pages a little bit, add a picture, edit some text. And after taking the course, they feel comfortable in that environment. A lot of companies use third-party applications in order to build their web presence, whether it's a WordPress environment or a Wix environment or something like that. By the time you're done, even with a simple 4-week class like this, you can edit and manipulate basic pages. So hopefully that gives you a skill that even if it isn't anything you're 100% even interested in, it gives you a skill that you might be able to apply to a resume builder or something like that. I really love it. I'm a designer by heart, by love. I eat, sleep, drink, breathe it. If I see something online, I read an article, I see something cool, I kind of ingest it. I kind of have this kind of library going on in my head of stuff I see that I like. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to pull out a little passion to build something or manipulate something in this class too. Okay, so that brings us over to the syllabus. The syllabus is our standard syllabus. You can go ahead and read that. My contact information is there. My email is by far the best way to get me because I'm an Apple guy. So I have an iPhone, a MacBook Pro, an iMac, an iPhone. If you name it, they made it, I have it. And my email gets pushed through to all of those things. So calling's fine and leaving a message, but the message is actually going to go to my email. I'm going to listen to it on my email, and then I'll call you back. Or if you send me an email, I might send you a Zoom link and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat real quick? Like, I'm really good with communication because if it's important to you, it's important to me. And I know there's very small windows of time where you can be productive in your life. And if that happens to be a moment where you're working and I'm available, I want to be able to help and answer. Family, life, jobs, things get in the way. If you get kind of behind a little bit or you get stuck in something, please make sure you reach out and just let me know. It's a 4-week session. Things kind of churn and happen in life. Although I put due dates on projects, I give you the 4 weeks to do them. So just let me know if something gets in the way, you got a hurdle, something's going on, and we can keep plugging along. The last thing I want to have happen is you disappear for 2 weeks and you're into week 3 and you're like, oh my goodness, like the world is coming to an end. If you wait until 3.5 weeks in, it's going to be tricky. But if you communicate all the time, my job needs me for overtime, my family, has these obligations, I'm happy to work with you. Like I said, I'm here every single day. So the lab's open every day, the library, every computer on campus has the software. You can access my Hugo. So if you put a little time into it, you're going to get a little time out of it. So just kind of know that. So that brings us over to the modules. The modules is our Hodges quotation mark way of organizing content. And traditionally, most courses, some waver a little bit, but they do a learning module a week. This course is no different than many of the other courses. We do 1 learning module a week. Our first 2 learning modules overlap a little bit. So I'm going to see if we can't do a bit of a compressed lecture tonight so we can get learning module 2 and a little bit learning module 1 and a little bit of learning module 2. So we can kind of keep the ball rolling here, letting you kind of push as you want to push. I turn on each learning module on Sunday evening of the week prior to the week we're going to meet. Some students email and they're like, oh, I already got through my projects. I'd love to get a preview of what's going on the next week. if I get someone that really wants to push ahead, I will turn one learning module on ahead of the next week so you can look at it. I also try to pre-post a lecture that I did last session of the class. So if you really want to, you can watch what I'm going to talk about before you ever get here one time, which for some, it might help because you see it, you watch it, you hear it. And then when you get here, you see it, you watch it, you do it, it helps. So I try to do that every single week, kind of give you a pre-lecture recording. Try not, even though this class could technically be an online class, try to not skip the lecture. If you can't make it here physically and you let me know, hey, my car broke down, I got a family thing, I got a kid sick, I got a girlfriend that has a work thing, whatever's going on, let me know. But try to watch the recording at the bare minimum, because at the end of the lecture, it gets posted to the cloud. I post a link in the announcement, attach a password to it, and you can log in and watch it. You can hear what I have to say. You can hopefully tie up any loose ends, any questions you might have. So if you can't physically make it and you can't log on at the time of the time slot lecture, please make sure you watch it later. I have a student here or there every once in a while that'll blast me with 10 emails and they never actually watched the lecture, and all 10 emails were answered in probably the first 15 minutes of the lecture I recorded. So not that I don't mind answering them again, but it would be nice if you engage in the content the way I'm engaging in the content. So just kind of do that. I know life gets in the way. I totally get it. So just stay in communication with me and kind of invest these 4 weeks in the course. And I think in the end, most students are like, wow, I can't believe I produced that. Wow, I can't believe I made that. Wow, I can't believe I actually get some portion of this. So we're going to actually start with the more challenging concepts. And then by the end, I'm going to show you some of the more web-based, easier tools. And everyone's going to be like, well, why didn't you show me that week one? Because sometimes you got to struggle a little bit to understand the backbone or the framework of something before you can appreciate some of the easier elements that are out there that are available to you. So we'll be writing some code, and then by the end, I'm going to show you some online code tools, and then we'll kind of close the circle. And by the end, hopefully you feel comfortable in building a basic website, an electronic announcement, maybe an online newsletter or something like that. Students are always like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really nerve-wracking. Remember, it is a Web 1 class, so we're going to try to spoon feed these skills and kind of micromanage them as you learn them so we can get the most out of what we're trying to learn in 4 weeks. Okay, all right, so that brings us to the learning modules. Make sure that you have Canvas open so we can kind of navigate through it a little bit as we get going. I'm going to bounce back and forth between a few things. I'm going to open up some stuff. We're going to download and play around with some things because there's a bunch of things I want to kind of touch base on tonight so that I can kind of send you off in a good place for the weekend. The weekend's a great time to kind of binge coursework, especially when life is busy during the week. So you can, Netflix this class. The assignments that we have for homework, I tell students, are about 45 minutes each assignment, not a big deal. The out-of-book assignments could be 6, 7, 8 hours to complete an out-of-book assignment. So just kind of space time accordingly. If you're kind of working on something and you don't get something quite done, send me an email, a screenshot, a little note, and we'll keep working on it. I want you to learn the skills and get the outcomes from the course more than I want you to struggle and feel like life is like really difficult. So I want you to learn the basic outcomes of the course. Understand HTML, be able to write basic HTML, understand basic Web 2.0 concepts with wireframes and responsive design, just basic elements, the names of things, where you look for things, because there's a big umbrella for web design of places that you can be successful in the field of editing and manipulating and building and modifying web pages that can be as simple and micro as an online platform to as robust as building it in Dreamweaver. So, okay, so to start here, the book that we're using for the course, the Dreamweaver Classroom in a Book 2021 book, is accessed via the Vital Source digital materials. Has everyone accessed a book before? You click on it, you get your digital bookshelf, you click on it, you open it up. I like physical books. They don't do it anymore. That's why I actually have the last edition of the book here. That's a physical book. And I open up the online book and look at the physical book and see what changes and tweaks and stuff have been made. I actually prefer a physical book, but in today's day and age, I guess everything is going to an online. My wife reads all of her books on her iPad in bed at night when she's falling asleep. And I'm like, how do you not have a physical book? Like, I need a physical book. Most students try to do either a split screen where they kind of have the book open on half the browser and the other half they have their program open and they're kind of editing pages. Some students, I don't know how they do it. They use their phone and they open up Canvas on their phone and they pinch and zoom and scroll the phone. I have tablets coming out of my ears because I have 2 teenagers. So a tablet's a really good thing. If you have one, doesn't even matter how good or what level it is. You can open up Canvas in your interactive PDF and scroll through it on there. Whatever works for you. I think out of the 10, we kind of have a split of CIT majors, some design majors, and 1 or 2 not technology majors. So most of you, I hope, are comfortable at least with technology a little bit to be able to navigate through the ebook and the application as well. So that's how you access that. I put a zip file of every chapter file that you need for the book. Your index actually tells you to go to peachpit.com/register and enter your ISBN number and you can download the files from the book. I just went ahead and downloaded the entire book for you and put it in a zip file there. When you click on it and download it and unzip it, all the chapter files are already named, which is a beautiful thing. The only folder that doesn't have any files is chapter 2, and that's making my first web page, and we're actually going to do that tonight. And so you don't have to worry about that one. So we're going to download that if you don't have it. A thumb drive is a really good idea, or some kind of external drive, or a computer you bring with you, because we will be navigating through files and they all have a relationship, which means when you store them somewhere, they kind of need to stay there. So whether you bring a thumb drive and stick it in the computer, whether you bring your own little computer, or whether you use the cloud to send files back and forth, just know that every file has to stay together. And we're going to kind of talk about that tonight when we go to glossary terms and kind of the introduction to your book. So I already gave you the student files. Our out of book project, I already put in the announcement section a pre-built template of all the files for you. I'm a firm believer in deconstructing to reconstruct. So I like giving you something that's already built and let you edit, manipulate, search, find, play around with, break, unbreak, download, re-download, because that's how you learn, right? You learn by seeing something and then deconstructing it and reconstructing it and playing with it. So hopefully that will help as we kind of navigate through. But we'll talk about all of Learning Module 1 during our lecture right now, and all of the little deliverables we have between now and next Thursday. It is the holidays. And for those that were on the screen that I had muted, the last 2 lectures will be online because the building is closed. If I could do it in the parking lot, I probably would, because it is the day before the day before. So technically not a holiday, but nice that Hodges kind of is non-traditional university format. So we got to go right up to right before the holiday. But I will be live online and we will be doing the interaction that way. So if you want to log on live online or watch it recorded later, if you have family in town or you're going somewhere or whatever, we'll still be able to communicate and interact with a live chat window and all that stuff. So, okay, so let me go back here to modules. And we're going to scroll down. If you haven't introduced yourself yet in the student introduction post, it's a cheap little 5 points, but it's a way for you to learn about the people in the class. I think 9 of the 10 have already posted in the student introduction, which is awesome. So you at least get to learn a little bit about the cohort that's in the course. And also IT, technology, really work for any matter is team. I mean, it's very rare that you're working by yourself. So having an interaction where we have a discussion board, or at least places where you can share pictures of your dog and what you like and life events and things like that, is really nice, because jobs are personal now just as much as they are professional. You kind of have a work family and a home family and all that stuff. So I like to try to engage in the student to student interaction a little bit, even though this is TEC and it's not technically online, and discussion boards and things like that are a really big online thing. I still believe in them, because every job I've ever had in the last 20 years has had me with someone else. And so I want you to be able to interact, and you can also share ideas and things like that too. Okay, so that brings us over to Learning Module 1. Now, like I said, we're using the Dreamweaver book, and we are going to make an attempt to tackle the first few chapter assignments as homework. I'm actually going to do with you the beginning of every single project for week 1 tonight in class. We're going to build project number 2. We're going to manipulate a wireframe, which is chapter number 3, and chapter number 4 is CSS, and we're actually going to do a very intro editing of CSS. Some students learn really well by watching me and following along. Some students do better just reading over and over and over again what is going on. Some students like to watch the video and pause me and replay me a million times and do it that way. Whatever works best for you, hopefully every delivery technique is going to be used in the class to help you be as successful as possible. I'm a visual person. I like to follow along, but I also like to think a bit too. So sometimes I get stuck on things. So I like to be able to hear it over and over again. So we're going to tackle the basics in every single one of our lecture. We can't do every step by step of everything we're learning, but we can do the umbrella of everything we're learning so that when you go home and you read and you reference things, you've heard them somewhere before. That's another reason why I love to post recordings and things in the announcement section to reinforce things, or maybe I'll do a second desktop share if someone has a question and post it out there, because probably everyone might have a question if it relates to a certain topic, to try to keep you moving along. I don't want you to get stuck. I want you to keep moving along. And that's the goal. So before you can do anything in Learning Module 1, whether it's here or home, you have to download the files. So make sure you definitely in the Start Here folder, you download that zip file that says Student Files, because that's every chapter assignment. You'll also notice in the announcement section, there's a movies files post on there. We need to download that too, because between those 2 zip files, it's everything you need for the class. So just make sure if it's your computer at home or if you have a thumb drive, you download those things and put them in, maybe it's just me. Is it a little warm in here? It's on 71 degrees. I'm going to bump it down a little bit. Last time I did that, the thing like froze up a little bit, but the computer's running, me talking, the projector going, the door open. It does get a little bit on the warmer side. So let's just bump it down to see what happens. With the door open, the fan normally runs, so we normally get better off that way. So, okay, all right. So that brings us to, we're going to kind of start talking about topics and doing things. But the first thing I want to cover, so I'm just going to go into my folder and we're going to cover some basic terminology for web design, just so that we're all starting on the same understanding of what web design is, some basic terminology. This is actually the preface or preview or intro to your book. It just talks about things like the internet and HTML. Has anyone built anything before in web? Edited anything before in web? Seen what code looks like for web? Okay, all right, so we're gonna all kind of start good on the very basic level of understanding so that we don't have to unteach something that someone maybe learned in maybe not the appropriate order. Okay, so we're gonna start with the basic concept of the internet. Everyone understands the interconnectivity of networking of computers together for the internet, right? Communication. Stanford computer sends a message to another computer. All of a sudden we got this dialogue happening between 2 machines that don't exist in the same area, right? Kind of voila, here starts the web. 14.5 billion pages later and adding, we got this thing that's ridiculous, right? I have 2 teenagers. It's amazing what they can do by talking into their phone, asking our Google speaker, hey, what's the weather going to be like today? And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, my kids are so technology savvy with this big umbrella of sharing of data. Like, they don't even understand why we don't have Wi-Fi sometimes. Like, what is going on? Why can't I do this thing while I'm in the car? Well, my car isn't a hotspot. So unless I share my phone to your device, you can't do what you want to do, right? So the world has gotten really crazy as far as that goes. It's going to even just get worse, right? 5G, 6G. My wife drives a Jeep Wrangler, terrible fuel efficiency. She loves the car. She's had it since some version of it since she was 17 years old, right? Favorite car of hers. So I'm like, well, maybe we should start thinking about something that isn't so bad in fuel. Let's go start looking at electric cars. Has anyone ever looked at a electric car, ridden in a Tesla or any other electric? Dude, they're crazy. Doesn't even sound like they're running. It's like you're driving a go-kart on the road. right now with the chip shortage, it's like impossible to even find an electric car, but technology is crazy. They actually said that Volkswagen is going to start releasing cars where the screen is actually the windshield. So when you look at the windshield, it's going to be a 3D model of the road you're driving on to show you everything that's going on. That's a scary thought, right? We went to Hyundai to kind of look at a few electric cars, and they have a new car coming out. Do you know the driver's seat has a recliner in the car that's coming out? The actual pad comes up from under the seat, so you don't have any feet on the pedal. You just recline in the driver's seat. Technology is getting really crazy. Good or bad, you're going to have to, at some level, put your arms around this concept of software running the world because it's going to happen. My buddy has a Tesla and he puts on the self-driving every once in a while, and I'm in the passenger seat and it makes me nervous. Like, oh my God, the car is driving itself, right? The worst part about my driving test was, parallel parking. Now, I think 80% of the cars, you hit a little button and the thing just pulls into the spot for you, right? So it's all the same concept. It's a language driving a machine to do something. From the little infancy of a communication, a text message going back and forth, all the way up to driving software, running cars on highways and everything else, self-driving devices. So the world is really changing. So HTML. Anyone know what HTML stands for? Hypertext. Yep, markup language. Very good. Hypertext markup language. Exactly. It is a language. And if you go to grad school, some degrees in some schools will actually take coding as a language, because you have to know at least 2 languages to get in certain degrees in grad school. They've made code a language now. So you can know Spanish and code, and they accept that to get in. Like, it's the craziest thing. So we're going to be writing a language, as weird as it sounds, letters, numbers, and symbols that communicate and make something visual out of this process. So, yep. Very good. HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which you see at the front of a web address, right? It says HTTP, S for security, right? If it's a secure site, but that connection, the P is the most important word. It's a protocol. Does anyone know what the word protocol means? Your job has this particular protocol.
A way of doing something?
Yeah, it's a process. It's an organized, written process, a set of rules that you have to follow. That's all this is. It's a language written in a set of rules that allows something to happen the same everywhere, in essence. Whether you're on Safari or Google, a Mac, you're on Android, ice cream, Kit Kat, whatever the latest operating system is for Android, right? No matter what the device is, whether it's your car communicating, right? You have to have a set of rules. You have to have a protocol in order to make sure everything communicates consistently. It's like the dollar, right? We have to accept that 10 cents is 10 cents. A dollar is a dollar. Gas costs X number of dollars, right? These are all rules. It's just like laws in driving. If we didn't have it, and I've seen some crazy things on the road, especially down here. People, we just changing 9 lanes and driving over medians and going the wrong direction, right? You still see that, and we have rules to follow on the road. So, okay. So we have URL, IP address. So a URL, what is a URL? In essence, a web address. Uniform Resource Locator, a URL. We used to know that as the fancy term. Now everyone knows it as a domain or a web address, right? www.chip.com or whatever that web address is, CNN.com, whatever your favorite one is, weatherchannel.com for me, because I like to know what's going on with the weather at all times, especially living down here. An internet protocol address, an IP address. So when you type in chip.com, it's actually going to 17.29.376, right? It's an actual IP address, a series of numbers that points to a certain location nowadays in the cloud, in this kind of machine environment where I'm renting virtual real estate, a computer that exists out in the world, Amazon cloud services, whatever cloud service you want to talk about. So I'm actually renting virtual real estate, an IP address, a location, a house on a street, in this virtual environment that I'm pointing everyone to. The easiest way I can explain the IP address is a house on a street in a neighborhood, right? That house is unique. There's only one of them, 1275 North Smith Street, right? There's only one of those. There's only one IP address. There's only one URL. There's only one domain. Can there be more than one chip.com? No, there can only be one, right? That's why everyone wrestles to get the best domain, URLs, web address, IP address, because they want everyone to remember whatever that simple name is, cars.com, houses.com, things that everyone can remember. We've gotten a little crazy now in dot extensions, which we call 8.3, like a name, .gov, .org, .edu, .com. Now we have .tv, .design, like everyone's got a dot now. It's because they ran out of the other dots. Everyone wants the same name, so they can't have more than one chip.com. So you have to go to chip.net, chip.gov, chip.edu. Yes, edu is traditional education. .gov is traditionally government. I mean, those extensions mean something, but they've started to overlap a bit now because we're running out of what people want to be known as. We used to call it 8.3, 8 characters for your name, dot 3 characters for your extension. Everything had to follow that. If you look at it now, have you ever seen web addresses? Like some of them are ridiculous now. Like they're an entire sentence in .com or .whatever, because it's an ad campaign and they want you to remember that. That 8.3 idea has gone by the wayside because everyone accepts the web now. Everyone accepts this concept of sharing data over something. I mean, I love my iPhone. I mean, I'm glued to this thing 80% of the day for some extent or thing. I'm checking something, I'm getting a chat, you know, I'm pulling something up. My Hugo works great on here. I got the Canvas little app icon, like everything runs up here. This little thing's faster than the computers we had 5 years ago. I mean, it's ridiculous. So everyone's gotten comfortable with it, but you still should understand kind of the framework and the foundation, which brings us to WWW, right? World Wide Web, right? It's this big web of stuff connected over devices, the sharing of data. That data is a language written with a set of protocols where a set of tags translate to an image or a video or text. And that text might be bold, or that text might be really big, or that text might be really small, right? No one ever really processes that there's something behind the scenes happening until they log into something and they see it's broken and there's either red X's or there's some broken code at the top, or you see something that doesn't load and it has the tag information, the iframe information stuck in there. Then everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe this thing actually is built around something. It takes that for people to understand that this is a language communicating a visual. It's just understanding what that framework is. Now, FTP, we already talked about because that's what Dreamweaver does, file transfer protocol. What it means is there's a set of rules to transfer files from your computer to the cloud, your computer to a computer out there sitting in some huge headquarters somewhere, like AWS. They just had a crash of their cloud service for a little bit, and it took down Amazon and all kinds of people, right? They have these big machines. You have a little IP address on those big machines. You're paying for the virtual real estate, and you're communicating between your computer and that thing that you're renting, that virtual real estate, until you push the little magic button to transfer the stuff from your computer out there for the world to see. No one can see it. So when you're working locally, if you don't zip all those files up and give them to me, I can't see what you see, because it is local until you publish it for the world to see. And that publishing for the world to see has a very inexpensive price of $6.99 a month. No, just kidding. Hosting, you have to pay for it, right? In order to use cloud services, you pay for it, whether it's to store images from your phone, it's to back up the text messages you send between your family and you. Everything is connected to these virtual environments, and you pay to have access to those. But the beauty is when it's out there and something happens here, it's still out there. If it wasn't out there and something happened here, That's when tears flow, people cry, the lifetime of family photos are gone, right? If you only stored it here, or you only stored it on your computer, and something happened to one of these two things, if they weren't out there for the world to store, you would lose them. So there are beauties to this idea of transferring files somewhere, hosting something somewhere else so that it's always there. It's kind of like a digital archive. What you should also understand is when you put it out there, it's pretty much out there forever. I mean, if you really Google some stuff, I mean, you'll see things. I've been designing for a long time, which feels like a long time. And I can find things I created 25 years ago still out there on the web because it's stored on a page that still exists somewhere on a server, and I can communicate with it. It's scary. So just be aware when you push publish, you want to make sure that it's okay that you push publish because, you know, the world can see everything. I try to teach that to my teenagers. Like, we don't need any college photos when you go to college out there for the world to see forever, right? Because once you hit publish, it's out there for the world to see forever. Okay. So hosting is exactly that, virtual real estate that you're paying for, that you're sending data to, that the world can access from anywhere. Scary, but you can literally access anything from anywhere if you upload it to a hosting environment. Amazon's a very popular one. I've done web design, like I said, for quite a while. Bluehost, who is now owned by some other network. I mean, there are just so many out there. Amazon's a beast, so they're like gobbling up so many people as far as hosting goes. Any hosting environment, they have the bandwidth in order to take a lot of clients on. So CSS is a cascading style sheet. We're actually going to edit some CSS tonight. Think of CSS like the little palettes in Word when you open up a document and you want to open up the paragraph or the character palette or the font palette, and you go in there and you change a typeface or a size of a letter. That little palette is a style sheet. That means it's a place where you change it once and it affects a lot of things in one swoop. So the web design is built on an environment where you can build as many things in one location that can affect a bunch of things that you see. So we're going to look at individual pages and we're going to look at style sheets, CSS and JavaScript, to see how you can communicate and build in one place, and it goes across many things that you're building. The beauty about that is if you need to make a change, you make it in one place and then it happens everywhere else. So that's a really nice thing. Lots of people think of it like templates, right? You go into PowerPoint and you make a master slide and then you build your entire presentation. And if you want to add a logo to your whole presentation, you put it in the master slide and it goes to the whole presentation. In essence, a style sheet is like that. You build it in one spot, and if you change the information a little bit, a color or a font, it changes it everywhere. So we'll look at a little bit of those group coding and we'll look at a little bit of individual coding. Now, if you get nothing else out of this class, literally nothing else out of the class, understanding what a root directory is the most important thing that you'll learn in web design. A root directory is also known as a public HTML folder. So when you create a website or edit a website or manipulate anything that exists out in the World Wide Web, you have what is called a root directory or a public HTML folder. That means anything, HTML, images, text, script, anything that interacts in the tool that you built has to exist in one folder. The reason it has to exist in one folder is because that folder points to the IP address. That IP address points to the URL or the web address. So everything points to one location. Why is that important? Because it doesn't matter who you host with. A cloud service, whether it's Amazon or Google or any of the major conglomerates, they all are based on one concept, one folder per IP address. So everything you do for any one given project needs to exist in one folder, which we call the root directory folder. So when you download the chapter files from the start here, you're going to notice inside that folder is a folder for each chapter. Each one of those chapter folders is a root directory. which means everything in it is tied to the chapter assignment. You can't save things outside of the folder and expect the folder to understand it. So that's the hardest thing with students. Sometimes they'll download a file at the library and start building an assignment, and then they'll save it to the desktop and then take it from the desktop and take it home and dump it in a folder. And because you didn't build it in one location where all the assets are tied to, it doesn't understand because everything is linked. And I'm actually going to show you tonight that Dreamweaver makes the connection for you. So it makes it where you can't break it, quotation marks, as long as you put it all there to start with. So like when we make a project or do a project, we're going to start with one folder and put everything in the folder. The things in the folder are called subdirectory folders. So that's the relationship if you don't get anything else. Because if you're working for a client and they say, hey, we have a website, all we need to do is switch a picture out. And you're like, I took Web Design 1. This shouldn't be a problem, right? I'll take one picture out, put another picture in. The first thing you're looking for is the root directory, which they call also known as the public HTML folder. So if you go on a Google Drive or you go onto Amazon Cloud Services, you're looking for the folder that is tied to your connection, your IP address. Everything will be in one folder, the root directory. So best practice in here is to always start with a folder. So if you're doing class number 2 or class number 3, start with a class number 2 or class number 3 folder and put the stuff in it. And if we're working on one website build, make a folder of the name, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, or out of book project 1, and put it in there and put everything you're working on inside of there. That way it's not broken. You can always connect to it and it's in one location if you ever needed to upload it. And that's a really important file management process for jobs in general, right? Doesn't matter what field you're in. If you have a computer or have access to something and you're making folders, I look at my wife's desktop and she works for Collier County Schools. There's like 8,000 documents on it. I'm like, oh my God, how can you find anything? Just make a folder for school A, school B, job 1, job 2, job 3. That way you can search it on your computer and not have to guess the name of the file. Well, I think it was Vineyards Elementary. So let me type that in and see if, oh my God, you're going to take an hour to find something. So best practice, it doesn't even matter if it's web design or not, a root directory folder. Make a folder for your class, your project, your client, whatever you're working on. It makes life a lot easier. You can't save things other places in this class. If you do, you're going to send me something that's broken. If you send me something that's broken, I can't see the beautiful thing you made because part of it won't appear. Yes, you can print screen, hit the print screen button and make a picture of it so I can see what it looks like on your computer, but I can't actually see the files because everything will be broken. Well, it works at my house. Well, it works at your house because the connection understands that stuff's all over the place and it's looking for those files. Once you come out of that environment, it doesn't understand anymore. And if you click the publish button to send it out to your cloud provider, it's not going to understand it either because it's all over the place and it's looking for a root directory or a public HTML folder. So those are the two names you have to know, root directories and subdirectories. Once you know those two things, everything else is just figuring out how to edit it, but you got to know they got to stay there. And nowadays with storage, you can get a little thumb drive that's like 4 gigs. I mean, so as a life thing, have a thumb drive. If you have a computer at home, store as much as you can or back it up somewhere where you always have a copy of it. Like I archive my desktop because I have a home computer I do a lot of design work on. I back that thing up often. I have a cloud backup that runs all the time, but I actually have a physical copy that I back up probably once a week. And I put that on, and then every 18 months or so, I get a new thumb drive and back it up because they fail every couple of years. You might get a little issue going, but it's a really good best practice to put things in folders with names. Okay, we're getting there. So color mode. Does anyone know what RGB is?
Red, green, blue.
Yes, RGB, very good. Are the computer screens RGB? Color mode. They are, yes, very good guess. They are. But has anyone ever heard of CMYK? Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Anyone ever paint a wall in their house and they go pick out a paint swatch and they go to the guy or girl at the counter and they put the white and it drips a bunch of color and they shake it? That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black is print color separation. RGB is screen or web color separation. So that's just an important distinction. And we'll look at hexadecimal numbers and how color works as we build web pages, but are 3 colors better than 4 or 4 colors better than 3? 4 colors are better than 3. That's why saturation, print production of things tend to appear more saturated than web, although we're getting to 5K, 6K, 7K, 8K TVs. It's pretty scary what we can get, but it's all based on a pixel, a little square of color that's filled in some shade of RGB. That's what it makes. The more pixels per inch, the higher resolution, the better the detail, right? That's how you get these crazy things. My kids are asking for PlayStations for Christmas. A, they're like impossible to get. And B, they're like 8K players. I never thought in my life I would see an 8K device, and it's a gaming device that you hook up to your TV. Do we have 8K content? Not as much. There is some stuff out there that's starting to be produced. I mean, you can see now the actors and the actresses have their makeups airbrushed on, right? You watch a TV show and you're like, oh my gosh, I could see a mole. I had no idea that actress or actor had a mole, right? The details are getting unbelievable, but they're separated by RGB. Red, green, and blue. And it's some percentage of 0 to 100%. And that's how you make the color mixture. CMYK is print, you get the dripping paint, but color is consistent. If the monitors are calibrated, PC, Mac, phone, your car dashboard, it doesn't matter. If the colors are calibrated, then that color should appear the same on every device you're viewing that color on. With that being said, if they're not calibrated, which means you have it in night mode, you have something going on any given device, it could appear darker or lighter based on what your color setting is on your device. But even the phones are getting ridiculous. I mean, the resolution on this thing, when I first started in 98, I designed websites on 640 by 480 in pixels. I think the phone is like 4,000 pixels wide. Like I could fit 5 or 6 website resolutions on the screen of this thing. I mean, it's scary how the world has changed, but I guess that's good, right? Everything's good if you can see it more real. I don't have to fly to Italy because I can see everything I ever wanted to see in Italy on a TV, and it looks pretty good. And now they have headsets and I can actually step into the Sistine Chapel and be able to see Michelangelo and all that stuff. My kid has a VR headset. I see him in his room every once in a while. I'm like, how do you not have a headache? How does that not work where you're like trying to do things in a virtual space? But we're getting there. I mean, that's what the world is all about. So, okay, image formats. Have you ever tried to take a picture and save it to your phone? What format is that picture when you save it to your phone?
JPG.
Yeah, JPEG. It's normally a JPEG. The web evolves around RGB format in image formats of JPG, PNG, and low resolution GIFs, animated GIFs and things like that. So you see those formats. PNGs are actually the best of the compression rate images in most cases. Used to be JPEG, PNGs kind of creeped up a little bit on us, but that's how you get 3,000 pixel images on the web, and they're like 100K, 200K, they're really small, right? Remember that the connection between your local machine and that cloud environment is like a straw. So the better your connection, 4G, 5G, whatever that Cat 6 line is running into your house, the better the connection, the quicker the transfer of data, the easier to load images and text, right? So if you have 5G and your phone has full bars, you're popping up web pages like this. If you're in your house and it's a concrete house and you have 1 bar, you get text and then a picture and then another picture and eventually a video, right? My in-laws have a 2-story, they're on the first floor of a 2-story unit and they have like half a bar. And I go to their house and I'm like, I can't even get a text message. What is going on here? But that's the beauty of showing you how the web works, because things don't load and you see how they load. because it's like, wow, I can't see this video. Well, that video is 4K and it's pointing to a cloud service over here, and it needs a big straw of connection to run that thing, or it's going to hiccup and it's going to be low resolution. All those things happen. It's because the straw is like the little straw they give you to stir the coffee. It's not the big straw they give you for a big gulp when you're getting a big drink at 7-Eleven. That size of straw, the transfer of data, is how you transfer images and text from device to device. So image format's very important because you want to compress that image so that it still looks good, but it isn't huge. Someone sends me a picture every once on text message, and I click download, and it's like 12 megabytes. And I'm like, my God, what did you shoot, a 9K image that you're trying to send me? It's like, and it finally downloads. It's like a picture of a flower. And I'm like, you probably could have taken that picture at a slightly lower resolution. I still would have got the idea. And when it came to my phone, a lot quicker. And that 12 megabyte picture wouldn't be stored on my phone, which is eating up my storage, which slows down my phone, right? So resolution is important. Just understanding that little squares of color made in RGB mode, saved as JPEG, PNGs, or GIFs, in most cases, are what the images are that are transferring back and forth. Do you think that textual elements transfer back and forth quicker than image-based elements? Yeah, so as much textual elements that you can have on your page appear much quicker. That's why you see CNN and you see a lot of heavy text-oriented journalism type of web pages. They're textual because you can download them, you can read them, you can do it a lot quicker. Things that are primarily pictures, like a restaurant that wants to put their menu online and they put a bunch of pictures out there. That's why you're in your car and you're looking for a signal so that you can download their menu so you can see what you want to order from them, right? That transfer takes time. And that's why businesses evolve and tools evolve, where companies come out with apps specifically for restaurants and menus to make it easier for them to transfer. You send me your pictures and we'll shrink them down so everyone can see them really quickly. So just know that relationship is happening. Does the code matter from Mac to PC? Yeah, see, we have a blended classroom, PCs and Mac. I always cheer when someone sits at a Mac. I always cry when someone sits at a PC. I'm just kidding. I'm a Mac guy. But no, there's a set of rules, right? HTML 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A set of rules so that we can transfer these things back and forth. Apple's fighting a battle that you can't do external pay in the Apple store with apps because they want to control the relationship between how things are being paid and what platform is being used. It's an argument that happens on all levels. Safari, Firefox, Chrome, all of these web browsers. Most people probably use Safari or Chrome, right? Yeah, Firefox and some of the other ones have kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. They control plugins, which are third-party software applications that help you run content on your pages. Plugins are starting to go by the wayside too. Everything's being embedded in an HTML5 kind of environment so that you don't need a plugin. Problem with plugins is you get viruses attached to plugins. That's why Adobe Flash and a lot of these plugin environments, Citrix, when you try to run certain, Zoom has its own plugin, right? You got to launch the software in order to open up the screen. Anytime you do that, that's its own language, its own application, and it opens up another pipeline, another connection to the outside world. All right, last but not least, I think that's last but not least. I got a couple more. Wireframe. The wireframe is the design of a web page, the logo, the navigation, the content, what we call the crumbs, which is the copyright and the information at the bottom of the page. We call that a wireframe. Wireframes used to be fixed, which means they were a certain width by a height that was determined by the amount of content in the web environment. Now we have what's called responsive wireframe design. As you shrink or expand the width of your browser, the design changes. It goes to an accordion drop-down menu when it's in mobile view, and it has full button navigation when it's in desktop view. How many people actually still use a desktop at home? Yeah.
My boyfriend has one, but it's a gaming desktop.
Yeah. Most people now use phones and tablets and more mobile environments, hence the need for responsive design. You need a mobile environment that shrinks and expands based on the device and the resolution. And it changes if you're in portrait or landscape mode, right? The thing has to change its format. If you go to Hodges.edu, the menu is at the top and it drops down and everything's in what's called one column. So everything is stacked on top of each other in portrait mode. When you turn it to landscape mode, the menu is still accordion, but it turns to two columns, which means pictures on the side, text on the other side. So a responsive design means that the design changes based on the pixel ratio and the proportion of the device, portrait and landscape, horizontal versus vertical. I don't even know if printers say portrait and landscape anymore. They used to say that, but portrait and landscape. All right, we already covered pixels. We already covered the .3 part of the URL, .biz, .edu, .us, .com. Now you got .eu for European websites. I mean, there's so many extensions. I saw .design the other day. I'm like, how did that happen? Now countries have their own extension, .aus for Australia or something like that. Like countries are starting to get their own. It's crazy. Responsive design, that shrinking and expanding. They're cloud-based now too. WordPress, Wix, Blogger, GoDaddy, Squarespace. I mean, there are so many web-based responsive design tools that really help you in this environment to create something that is liquid and changes based on the pixel ratio of the device you're using for it. So WordPress used to be the only game in town. There's still lots and lots and lots and lots of websites built in a WordPress environment, because once it's built, it's an easier administration for changing, editing, updating, uploading, that sort of thing. A lot of them have come to the forefront. Wix is a really popular one now. They sell you the hosting, they sell you the domain, they sell you the template, and they even give you the FTP to change everything in it. Everything is self-contained. I'm going to show you the manual part to start, and then we're going to look at like a WordPress environment so you can see the cloud-based tool that's used to manipulate this stuff too. And everyone at the end is like, well, why didn't we see the cloud-based tool first? Because I want you to see how things are built. It's like anything. If you watch someone build something, if you ever have to fix it later, you saw the original construction of it. I built a house not long ago. I got to see every phase of the build. When I had an issue, I was like, let me go back to the picture I took when there was no drywall so I can figure out where the studs are to hang my TV, right? When you see the construction, it's easier to edit in the long run. So, okay. Last two things. One, index.html. Does anyone know what the index.html page is? Have you ever seen it before in a URL? It's the home page. So index.html is the home page. So if you happen to see that on a quiz, maybe that says the home page is A, contact.html, B, menu.html, C, index.ding, ding, ding, ding. Index.html is the home page. Remember, there's rules like this whole hosting, FTPing, one folder. Well, guess what? You have one IP address with one folder. And the way the rules work is anything that you want to appear at chip.com has to be named index.html. That's how Google Cloud Services, Amazon Cloud Services, Bluehost, Network Solutions, all GoDaddy, all these hosting environments that are selling you virtual real estate on a computer sitting in Texas somewhere that you're changing data through, that connection is looking for an index.html file. Yes, we have what's called a redirect, which means you can actually redirect the URL, chip.com, not to go to index.html, to maybe to go to menu.html. So sometimes when you log on to a page or you go to an app, it's not technically the home page that you land on when you go searching for it, but that's what we call a redirect. But the rule is that your public HTML folder needs to have an index.html in it. That's the home page. That's the page that your domain name is looking for. bobssubsareus.com. It's looking for the index.html. It could be subs as his menu, but it's looking for that landing page, that splash page, that home page. That is the index.html. If you download any of the files for your book, and you go to the chapter folder, the very first thing you're going to be looking for is the index.html. That is the page that every page is connected to and through. If you do a Google search, does it immediately send you to the index.html page? It sends you to whatever content you're looking for in the page. But if you go looking for something and you're looking for used cars and it sends you to AutoNation Fort Myers, right? If you click on the add link of autos of Fort Myers, it will send you to the index or the homepage. If you click on one of the search keywords in your thing, which might be, I don't know, Toyota Corollas, it will send you to a sub page of toyotas.html or whatever that page extension is. Just know that that relationship is there. The index is the home page. Everything is spawning off of that. We call those primary or level 1 and level 2 pages. And last is vlab.hodges.edu. We actually have a virtual lab. It sits in the other classroom right over there. And we have Microsoft Office on there. We have all the Adobe applications on there. You can actually log in to that vlab.hodges.edu URL, IP address, and enter your username and password that you use to get into hodges.edu or MyHugo or anything, and you will get into a computer that sits in that room right over there and has Word and PowerPoint and Dreamweaver and all the software on it. If you go to vlab.hodges.edu and you click on Dreamweaver, does that software exist on your personal computer? It does not, right? You're actually viewing it through a web browser. So that web browser is in essence a web page that is showing you the desktop of the computer that exists over there. Can more than one person tap into that? Yeah, it's a virtual lab. Everyone can tap into it. Is it as quick as having it here? It's not as quick, so just know that. So if you're on your phone and you're out shopping and your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend are shopping, you're like, man, I'm gonna go on real quick and play around in Dreamweaver. You can actually use your phone and go into vlab.hodges.edu and log into Dreamweaver. And you can actually play with Dreamweaver on your phone. I mean, it's sitting right in that other room. Just know that if you're at Miramar Outlets and there's about 8,000 people all accessing the Wi-Fi, you may barely be able to click on a button on Dreamweaver while you're messing around. So just know that. But that is a tool that's available. And that's another unique kind of a IP address, kind of URL. It's vlab.hodges.edu, kind of like canvas.hodges.edu. So you have these extensions that go beyond 8.3, which is what the original rule of thumb is with pages, with web pages. Okay. So that gets us all up to the same kind of basic understanding of web design. That's like the introduction to your book. Chapter 1 of your book only requires you to download the student files and open one up in Dreamweaver. It actually doesn't require you to edit anything. So the chapter 1 assignment in your book is literally just to give me back the chapter 1 folder. Literally just upload the folder back to me. There's no required action at all in chapter 1. The reason chapter 1 is important, and we're actually going to open up Dreamweaver tonight, is just so that you know where the basic tools are and you know how to make a basic connection between your computer and the software application. It's just like any coding application or anything you're doing over in the IT lab. You got to have a relationship, a simulator that you're tapping into. All chapter 1 is, and sometimes I don't even use it as an upload, but I like to because it's an easy 100 points of just opening up. Don't skip it. I know it says open up the index file and take a look at the header and see where it appears in the images folder. It just shows you the basic stuff of Dreamweaver, and I'm going to show you it tonight too. But please don't skip it. Read the 10 pages that make up chapter 1, just so that you know what a toolbar is, where the properties are, what a split screen looks like. I mean, it's just basic stuff. And everyone's like, well, it's easy. I'll just re-upload the thing. But I'll be able to tell later if you didn't at least open it up and look, because I'll get a question and it'll be something that was covered in chapter 1 because you skipped chapter 1 and went to chapter 2. So just know that. I'm going to cover it when we open up the movies folder that I have attached in the announcement section. So I'll be able to see what's going on. So we're going to write a little basic HTML tonight. So chapter 2 in your book is my first web page. So like page 22 or 23 in your book actually has you make a thing called My First Web Page. We're going to build a web page also. When we're done building this web page, you can give it to me as chapter 2. So in theory, 2 of your 4 chapters right now will be done in the next 30 minutes of our class, which is awesome. So that'll give us a chance to play around in wireframe mode. So we need to open up Notepad or text edit on your computer. If you're on a Mac, it's text edit. You can go to the hard drive, go to the applications folder and find text edit. If you're on a PC, we're looking for Notepad. I think they call it Plus now. They keep changing the images on the computer. So I try to keep up with the technology of what the text file is. But we're looking for basic Notepad, just something we can write some code in. Because we're going to write some basic code in a Notepad. Do you have to have an HTML editor in order to build HTML pages? Nope. We're going to build one right now with no HTML editor. We're going to use basic straight up text edit or Notepad. If you're in text edit and you open up a new document, make sure that you switch it to plain text. You know, when you work in a Word document, it's an XML file or it's an enhanced Word document. What's actually happening in Word is that code behind the scenes is helping you build that document that you're building. While that code actually is inhibiting, it's kind of like modifying the basic text elements. In Notepad, you can just type it and we can actually save it as an HTML document. In text edit, it actually wants to make it a rich text file and override the code that we're writing. So we want it to be a basic Notepad. You could do it in your phone on Notepad too. Notepad is just a basic text file that has no formatting at all tied to the document. So we want to make sure it's straight up plain text. So I'm going to open up a new document and you're going to notice in mine, it has these ruler lines. That means that it's rich text. And if I go up to format and go to plain text, I get this thing, just a basic Notepad. There's no coding whatsoever associated with this document. So I can write whatever I want. We're going to do HTML code in 2 ways. The first way, we're just going to write it in a basic Notepad. You're going to do it on a PC, you're going to do it on a Mac. We're going to write the tags to make a basic web page. We're going to save it as an HTML document right out of the Notepad so that you can see it's an actual web page. When we're done, you're going to see a basic web page. Very rudimentary, but basic web page. We're actually also going to copy the code and I'm going to show you what it looks like in Dreamweaver as an HTML editor. So we're going to build our basic web page in 2 locations, in basic Notepad. And then again, I'm going to show it to you in code view of Dreamweaver so you can make the connection between the 2 tools. Okay. Does everyone have a basic Notepad opened up, right? Basic Notepad. All right. So the way that code works, and I don't know if you've written in any other languages or anything like that, but we need to kind of like bookend things. We need what's called an open tag and a close tag in order to write in this language that allows us to build a web page. So the very first most important thing is we have to determine that what we're building is HTML, right? We got to tell this page that everything that exists on this page is HTML. That's the protocol, that's the language, that's the rule, that's the thing that's going to determine everything that we're writing and how it looks going forward. So you'll notice on my screen that the very first item I typed into my Notepad is an HTML tag, less than symbol, HTML, greater than symbol. That's telling my document that anything on this page is HTML. I also have to close my HTML tag so that it understands that I open the language and I close the language. And then anything that happens inside of the language is HTML. I kind of explain it like, I don't know if you've ever seen a babushka doll before. They're little Ukrainian wooden dolls and it has a head and a body and you take the head off and inside there is another head and body. And you take that head off and inside is another head and body, take that head off. It's doll inside a doll inside a doll. The outside doll is the open HTML is the head and the closed HTML tag is the body. Once you go inside of there, That's all the HTML tags that tell you what the page is going to look like. And you've probably seen on YouTube things like iframes, little windows that point to content that pull from somewhere else. We're going to look at all those things, but you have to open the HTML and close the HTML, and then everything inside of it is going to be HTML. So I'm going to scroll to my finish just so that you can see this thing right here, the closed HTML tag. So less than symbol, / HTML, greater than symbol. So what I'm going to do in my new notepad is I'm going to hit enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 10 times. And then I'm going to do less than symbol / HTML, greater than symbol. And what that is doing, that's the head and the body to the babushka doll. Everything inside of there is HTML tags, text and symbols that translate to text and pictures. That's all it is. If it has a greater than symbol and a less than symbol, it's a tag, which means you don't see it on the visual page. If it's written language, anything inside any tag, it is a visual element that you will see on your web page, picture, text, video. Are we okay? All right. So just under our open HTML tag, we're going to build what's called metadata. Metadata is the data behind the scenes that you see out in Google search world, but you don't necessarily see on the web page. You probably heard it as keywords, right? I got to make sure I have the right keywords in my search so I find the content I want. Keywords are metadata. That's data that exists in the HTML page behind the scenes that you can search for, but you don't visually see. Well, the most common metadata is the title tag. Does anyone know where the title to a page exists out on the web? In the tab at the top. So when you search for a web page, at the very top tab, in that little indented tab of the search bar, and it says United States weather, when you go to weather.com, that United States weather or global weather or whatever the weather tag is, it's in that tag. It's not in the body of the web page. So technically you do see it, but it's not page content. It's the stuff you search for. So when you do a Google search, the very first thing the spiders look for is the page name. After that, they look for all the additional metadata that's on the page, keywords that help to catalog the page. The last thing they look for is the actual content on the page. So they look at the title first, the 7 or 8 words of metadata, and then the page content. And that's how you get page hits. So we're going to go less than symbol, HEAD, greater than symbol. So does that appear on the actual physical web page? No, that's the tag, right? Anything that's tagged, open and close, does not appear on the web page. It's only what's inside of it. So technically, this is the second doll inside our babushka doll. So we're going to take the head and the body off, and inside of it will be our actual title. So I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to do less than symbol / HEAD, greater than symbol. All I'm doing is setting up my bookends that I want to put my stuff inside of. So I'm actually going to open a body tag and close a body tag and then put all the stuff I want to appear on the page inside of it. So the head tag is just telling this HTML document that anything inside of this tag, open and close, is the stuff behind the scenes. So the metadata. So the most important one is title. So right under the head tag, we're going to do greater than symbol, TITLE, less than symbol. Quick question, me hitting enter to make spaces in between all this stuff, does it matter whatsoever? It does not. It absolutely does not. This could be one run-on sentence that went 8,000 characters long and the page would look exactly the same. Line breaks and paragraph breaks only happen by tagging BRs and Ps. Enters mean absolutely nothing. The only beautiful part about enters is that in Dreamweaver, it's color coded. Things you can edit, things you can't, what certain tags are all color coded. So there's enters, spaces between them, just from a visual standpoint to separate the lines of code. but the actual enters have no effect whatsoever on the page. It means absolutely nothing. Unless I forget a caret, a less than or greater than, then it will break the tag and you'll actually see the tag in the code. So if you ever saw a web page where you're actually seeing tag information, it's because there's a broken link of code there somewhere. They didn't close the tag or they didn't do something and it doesn't understand, because remember, it's a protocol. It's a set of rules to translate data back and forth between two devices, and something is broken. So if something's broken, in Dreamweaver, it's highlighted in red, which really is helpful because you're like, something is not working. I need to fix that, right? So that's the beauty about code editing software, whether Streamweaver or any application. And everyone has some of their own proprietary tools sometimes that you're using. WordPress has its own. It's just knowing what it looks like and what you're looking for in the order that it's structured is half the battle with editing. Sometimes it looks a little overwhelming, but it's only overwhelming because there's a lot of stuff on the page. It's not overwhelming because it isn't separated well. You just got to kind of know what you're looking for. So we're going to spoon feed you pre-constructed code so you can know what you're looking for. My first job in web design in 1998, I had a guy named Alan that sat next to me. And he spent his entire day looking through thousands of lines of code to see if there was a question mark in the wrong place, an exclamation point in the wrong place. And the code did not change color. So he would put headphones on and skim through thousands of lines of code to figure out why something wasn't working. And he had a stack of books that was like this big for all the different languages to figure out what was working and what did not work. We've come a long ways, but if there's a question mark where there's supposed to be an exclamation point or vice versa, or there's a broken caret, and I have every student every time, they're always like, gosh, something's not working. And I'm like, look at your code for a minute. And they're like, something really isn't working. And I said, okay, let's preview it in live mode. And it'll immediately say, this thing is broken. And then they'll look and they'll be like, oh my God, I forgot to put a greater than symbol to close this tag. And that's why nothing's working. And everything below it isn't working because the thing I was supposed to close, I did not close before the next thing. So it becomes obvious a little bit when you start looking at code a little bit more. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and write a title for our page. I thought we would make our first page be something about something you're looking forward to in 2022. There's got to be something out there, a new restaurant. Topgolf already opened, so I can't list that as something I'm looking forward to in 2022, but I'm waiting for the next season of Mandalorian. I think that's going to be kind of cool. Kind of looking forward to that, right? So we're going to write a title for our first web page, quotation marks. Will this title appear? Yeah, remember, it'll be in that little tab of the window browser. So it's in between the two tags, the open and close tag. Anything in between the two tags will actually appear. So let's just do ready for 2022. And remember, we have to close the title tag, right? So we got to do this less than symbol /title greater than symbol. If we don't do that, the title tag will be broken and it won't appear in the tab. Even though we're telling it it's inside the head or the metadata, it won't understand because we didn't close it. We have to close it. Do I need to put a space bar between? No, spaces, nothing matters in the world of code. I mean, we could do run-on stuff all over the place. Do spaces matter in the stuff that's actually going to appear on the page? Yes, space matters in the stuff that actually appear on the page.
That's not right.
Do I have a typo there? Oh, I forgot a caret. Thank you for that. There we go. Yes. So does anything actually physically on the page yet? Like in the body of the web page yet? We have absolutely nothing. This will be a white page with a tab that said ready for 2022. We don't actually physically have anything on the page yet. In order to have something on the page, we have to set up a body tag. Body tag open, which you're going to see less than symbol, BODY, greater than symbol to open it. And then you're going to see all the way down just above the close of the HTML tag, we're going to close the body tag, right? And that's telling the web page anything inside these two body tags is going to actually appear on the web page. I feel like I'm writing code for like Atari, like the Pong thing where the two paddles are going. I tried to do that way, 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 way back in the day on my Commodore 64. I spent like weeks writing code and the game actually didn't work. I was devastated. Yeah, so we're making a very basic page. So let's do body tag open. And then just above, can I put it on the other side of the HTML tag, below it? No, it's in order. Babushka dolls. I'm taking heads and bodies and putting stuff inside of it. It has to appear here because it has to appear inside of the HTML tag so that the page understands that everything we're writing is HTML. When we open up Dreamweaver and I show you the code side of Dreamweaver, all of this is pre-filled. And it even says document, HTML document. Everything is coded for you. And when you start building the page, everything immediately goes in the body tag. If you open a page that's already built, all the code is already there for you. Have you ever viewed the source of a web page? You can right click on it and do view source, and you got thousands of lines of code. The only thing good about view source is you can see where they're pulling content from. So you can actually go onto a web page, do view source, and see that half of the web page is pointing to content that exists somewhere else. We call those affiliate links. So they are not actually generating any content at all. They're pointing to somebody else's content. Do you need an internet connection to see the content pointing somewhere else? Yeah. If you're pointing your content to somewhere else, you're a rock band and you have a video on YouTube and you want to have your own website and you have your videos that are uploaded to YouTube on your own website. If you don't have an internet connection, can you see the videos on your page? No, right? They're pointing to YouTube. If YouTube goes down, can you see the videos even though they're existing on your page? No, they're an iframe pointing to YouTube. If that content goes down, it doesn't matter how pretty it is on your page, your IP address, you're not going to be able to see it. And that's part of the problems, quotation mark, of having things interconnected in the web. What if the shopping system goes down and you sell widgets and everyone needs that widget? If the shopping system that sells that widget goes down, I don't care if there's 8,000 websites that all sell that same widget. Can anyone on any of those websites buy that widget? Nope, it's down. So that's one of the challenges of this concept of sharing data across platforms, is that if one piece goes down and everything is tied to that one piece, we have a problem. My Hugo runs off a security certificate. If we don't update that security certificate, nothing runs, right? Boom, broken. That actually happened last week, I think for a couple of hours. The certificate expired, wasn't updated, and it went down. Yeah, and it's like, oh my goodness, we can't see anything. Oh, wait a minute, let's see what's going on here, right? If I don't run an update, it can't do it. Just like a browser, the operating systems. Sometimes you'll get a message that says your operating system's outdated. We can't do what you want to do because you didn't update yours, which doesn't understand the language to update the thing that you're trying to see. So just know that relationship. Okay. So we need to write. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write 3 or 4 sentences inside of your body tag of just something about 2022. Looking forward to my kids getting through another year. I don't know. I'm sick of the weather. I'm waiting for it to cool off. I can't wait for the restaurant to have my favorite drink that I always get, or I don't know, whatever you're looking forward to. You have a vacation, you have a trip, you have family or friends coming in town, whatever it is. We need 3 or 4 sentences because we're going to use some HTML tags to kind of dress up that information that you wrote. So I'm going to write, I can't wait for Christmas. 2 teenage boys. They always forward to it. And I love the cooler weather. No AC in the house. Hopefully 2022 means some level of normal being returned to this world. There are 3 or 4 sentences, just a few things that we can manipulate. Say that again. You got it? So we're still just writing Notepad, just basic HTML. We actually haven't done anything with this thing yet. Can it just be saved as a TXT file? Yeah. Will we be able to see the actual visual representation of what we created if we save it as a TXT file? No, it'll just be raw code. The minute we do a save as .html, it's going to ask us, do you truly want this to be an HTML document? And we're going to say yes. And that new thing that we created is going to convert this code into an actual visual page. It's going to replace all of the code we're writing into a web page document. And I'm going to show you how you can take this code and put it into Dreamweaver and see both a code view and a live view of the web page. And it's a really cool thing. All right, so we have 3 or 4 sentences or something like that.
Does it have to have like 2022 or anything in it?
Oh, whatever. I think someone already did their project because they watched the preview of the lecture for tonight and they put something with an Adele video and stuff in it. I don't think it had anything to do. Is that what you did? It was great. You did an awesome job. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be. I just use it as long as when we save it, it has some level of my first web page or something where I know what it is. It doesn't have to be that now. Maybe you're not looking forward to 2022. Happy to stay in 2021. Okay, all right. So now that we have the basic few sentences, we're going to add a couple of HTML tags. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that I have in my document so that you can add them to your document. This less than symbol, lowercase b, and greater than symbol is making something bold or strong like you would do in a Word document. So find a word or two amongst the sentences that you have written in your page that you think might be good as bold. Like maybe it's the year or something you're really looking forward to. And you can put the open B tag and the closed B tag around more than one word. All it's doing is the babushka doll technique. So whatever's inside of there is going to become bold. In my little sample I had in my video, I think I just bolded one word or something like that. But you're also going to notice I did italic. So I and /I to close. So you can make a word or two bold and make a word or two italic, just so that you can see the separation of it. We're not going to do super advanced HTML tagging in the My First Web Page because a lot of it can be generated very easily in Dreamweaver. But I just want you to know how it works so you can see it visually. So I'm going to go with teenage boys. That seems like that should be a bolded document. And I'm going to make my AC italic. So I'm just doing a few words just so that we have something basic here so you can kind of see what it looks like. I'm going to do bold here. Your book, chapter 2, gives you literally like 2 sentences of My First Web Page and a title. So I try to do a little bit more in the lecture. You can do the one in the book. It's on like page 22 or 23 in your book. And it's the basic one. And that will suffice for the project. But normally 95% of the students just give me what we do in class. So, all right. So bold and italic, a few of those things. And now in my lecture video, we embedded a YouTube video. So we're going to embed a YouTube video. So let's keep our text document opened and let's go out to Chrome or Safari and go out to YouTube and let's find a video, something that, I don't know, maybe a music song you like, or, you know, maybe I put an order in for a small little pickup truck that's going to come in like 2 years, I think, because it's a chip shortage. Maybe I'll do a little video. My kids are looking forward to Spider-Man No Way Home, I think is the name of it. So let me see if I can find that video. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type in YouTube. I'm going to turn the audio down on my computer so that music doesn't play when I go in here. And I'm actually, why don't I do the Spider-Man No Way Home? You could do whatever, a song, try to keep it PC, like no politics or anything, violence, anything like that. But whatever like video might be cool. I'm going to go with the trailer and I'm going to go ahead and click on the video. Now, I'm going to pause it because I don't know if you ever noticed in videos, but this is how everyone takes videos, uploads them to YouTube and shares them in their own platform. They do it by the share button. So when you click the share button, you can do social media and you can also embed. So if you click the little embed button, it's going to give you the iframe. Remember, an iframe tag is an HTML tag just telling the document that what's inside exists somewhere else. If you do not have an internet connection, you will have a gray box on your web page showing the video, but not showing the video. So you have to have internet connection with iframes. Does the website, so I'm going to copy that. So I'm just highlighting it, and you do edit copy, or on a Mac, it's Command C, and I think it's Option C or Control C. On a PC, maybe it's Control C to copy it. But we're just going to copy that iframe. Now, something to look at in any metadata and something to highlight, you're actually going to notice that it has a preset width of 560 and a height of 315. What is that measurement? What is it? Yeah, but what is the actual unit of measure of that? It's a pixel, right? Remember, pixels are the resolution of your screen. The 560 and 315 are just telling you the pixel ratio of your video. That's actually not really that big. The rest of the stuff is the metadata behind the screen. It auto plays, it has picture in picture, it's embedding this video that has this ID number. That's the source, the hypertext transfer protocol, secure page, URL, www.youtube.com/subdirectory embed / and the file name. That's what that stuff means. All right, so we'll do that. Let's minimize my thing. I'm going to go back into my page, and I'm just going to go into one of my enter sections, and I'm going to hit paste or edit paste or Control C or Command or Control V or Command V. You just need to get that stuff in there. And so now we have our body with a few sentences. We have a bold and italic. We've embedded third-party content, an iframe that points somewhere else, which we also call an affiliation link. If you go to any website and they're selling stuff that exists somewhere else, all it is an iframe pulling data of a certain width and height embedded in the side column of website, selling it. Do you make money when someone clicks on a pair of boots that goes somewhere? Yeah, it's called an affiliation link. You get a cent or 2 cents or 3 cents. Does YouTube know that you're watching the video that's getting pointed over there? They have metadata for a lot of things. They can track the browser IP address to know who's pulling what from where. That's more complicated than having to click on it to view it. But most people click on it to view it when it's embedded. So they end up getting the data more directly. But how do you know they track criminals and everything? They go to their phones, find out where it was pinged to a tower. They track the phone. I mean, they can find it. I mean, it's scary what people can find out now. I have a Nest doorbell and I have cameras and stuff. And it's like, man, my phone's always buzzing. You know, someone walks their dog by the door or anything. Like, if it's out there, they can track the relationship of where it exists and where you're viewing it from. It's a really scary thing. Okay, all right, so we have a basic web page built. So the first thing we're doing is we're going to copy it, and we're going to go into Dreamweaver and paste it so you can see what it looks like in a Dreamweaver environment. Then we're going to go back and do a file save as of this document, and I'm going to show you what it looks like as a rudimentary page. Sometimes when we do save as in this document, some students will close this document and open up the new web page on the browser, and it actually replaces all this code with the actual designed web page, and you have to go in and turn off the rich text in order to see the tag again. So we'll copy it and put it in Dreamweaver first, and then we'll save this as an HTML document, and you'll see how the two relationships work. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to highlight all of the text that we typed, and we're going to do edit, copy, or however you do the copying process. And then let's go to Dreamweaver. So if you're on a PC, just go to your programs folder. Sometimes there's a shortcut there inside there. If you're on a Mac, just click on the DW down the bottom, and we're going to open up this document. And you're going to just see, this is the basic Adobe. Has anyone ever used an Adobe program before? Sometimes people dabble in Photoshop because they want to edit pictures or something like this. This is a pretty standard layout for Adobe programs, as far as the toolbar being on the left-hand side, palettes being on the right-hand side, and the document being on the inside. Pretty standard layout. This is a multimedia tool, so it's a little more enhanced because it's connecting between a server and the software. It's not nearly as intimidating as some of the cloud-based file management systems, like Bluehost is one I use. And this thing looks a little bit more concentrated with less icons and stuff. So you gotta kind of know where upload and download and everything is on those applications. This one's a little bit better. So once we have basic Dreamweaver opened, we're gonna do create new. So if you have Dreamweaver open, let's just go to basic create new. You can do file create new. You can click on the little create new icon, and you're going to notice that it wants you to tell Dreamweaver, in essence, what language are you writing in? Are you building a template? Are you building HTML? Are you doing CSS? Like, what are you doing? We're doing a basic HTML document, which was the default one at the top there. And you'll see the document type is evolved into HTML5. So that's just the language version of HTML that we're writing in. And we're just going to do create. So I'm taking your chapter 2, which is your basic My Web page, first web page, and I'm going to cross it now into chapter 3, which is showing you how Dreamweaver interacts in a web page environment. So we're going to take chapter 2, and now we're going to move the content into chapter 3. We're also going to open up a design in Dreamweaver so you can see what chapter 3 and 4 actually interact or look like. So I'm just going to put this on. You're good. Voila. All right, so you're perfect. Now, the beauty about Dreamweaver is it allows you to view your document in 3 different views. One is called code view, which is right down here, and you might recognize if you click on code. So let's just click on the code button. And you're going to notice that that looks a lot like what we wrote in our notepad, right? It's got metadata, it's got a title tag, it has body tags, it has basic HTML, it's telling the document that it's a document type HTML. This grayed out information just means that it can't be edited, that it's frozen. It's part of the standard document when you create a new document in Dreamweaver. The beauty about Dreamweaver is, from a code view, if it's gray, you can't edit it. If it's gray, it means it exists somewhere else. And that's where the problem solving comes in when you're doing web design is, well, if it's gray, where does it exist where it isn't gray, where I can change it? And we're going to talk about the relationship of documents in Dreamweaver. So there is code view. My favorite view, which is split view. And split view means everything that you have to write by hand exists down here, AKA Alan, the guy I worked with way back in the day. Everything, how it looks on the actual web page up here in design or live view. I love code view because I know enough about code that I can write it, and design view because I can see if what I wrote was successful or not. And design view actually has regular design view and artificial. This is what it would look like if I uploaded it to an FTP connection, live view. Live view means it's trying to dynamically render what you created in a web environment. I personally, when I'm creating, editing, modifying web pages, I do split design view. That way I see what I'm building and everything that is on my computer is active and dynamic, but I'm not pointing to a live refresh connection in the live part of the view where it's always trying to figure out if I have an internet connection or not. So I like split view because I like to see code, and I like it in local view, which is called design view, not live view, which means rendering everything in a browser active environment in the live view. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the meta HTML down here with our mouse and hit delete. And look what happens. Line 1, line 2, it's trying to figure out what's going on here, right? It's got nothing in the design view because there's no code or anything. And I'm going to click down there and do paste, edit, paste, or control V, or control, or I call Apple key because it used to be named the Apple key on an Apple, but Command V, and it's going to paste my code down there. And look what happened up here. You should get your running text. You should get some bold. If you made anything bold, it should be darker, but you can see my bold up here. I made an italic or the I, so this should be tilted, right? Should be on an angle a little bit for italic. And you should have a gray box where your YouTube video was, which will give you a really good idea of what 560 pixels width-wise look like on your computer based on the resolution of your device. This would be bigger if you were on a lower resolution device. It's smaller if it's on really high resolution. These Macs are pretty high resolution. They're 3,000 pixels or so width. So that video should appear a little bit small in design view. If I switch it to live view and I have an internet connection, you can actually see my video there. Every once in a while, some of the computers go into sleep mode, and that's still a gray box because it doesn't understand that it has an Ethernet connection. But live view should show your video down here with the dynamic play button. And this is what an iframe does in live view in Dreamweaver. It actually still gives you the connection to the video and gives you the interactive properties of it because it doesn't exactly exist on my page. It exists on the page I'm pointing to. This is just a picture window pointing to another web page. So we wrote that code in a basic notepad and using an HTML editor, and you could use any HTML editor if you paste it in that code environment and do. In some cases, it doesn't have a design view and it just has a code view. If you do file, save as, and you save that as a web page, you will get the view that we have in the top here, which is called live view. So with that being said, we're going to do file, save as, and we're going to save this new page we created. This is chapter number 2.
My text is weird. It wrapped all the way down to the side of the video.
It did that because we didn't put a paragraph break in it. So remember, everything runs together because there's no breaks. So even though we hit enter a few times, the video is there. So in our code view, so I'm gonna cancel that really quick. In our code view, if we put a paragraph, a less than symbol P, greater than symbol in front of our video, it will move it down. The only reason mine isn't over there is because my browser is only so wide with all my things. So it moved it down for me. But we can do what are called line breaks, which is less than symbol BR, greater than symbol. And that's like hitting enter once on your keyboard. A paragraph less than symbol P, greater than symbol is like a double enter. We call it a 1.5 break. So BRs and Ps are ways you can manipulate how your text and images wrap on your page. Even if it moves it up, it's not a big deal because I can see the HTML of your basic web page so that you see how it works. So let's save it as long as
Well,
you,
and also my videos is unavailable.
yeah, that's no internet connection. It's
Oh.
just not pointing to it.
Oh,
Are
so I
you in,
have
are
internet.
you in design mode?
I went to live and then I went
Yeah.
to design and it shows a black.
Yeah,
box.
sometimes it doesn't read the
So it's okay
connection.
that my
It's okay.
last two words
Uh-huh.
are
Yeah.
on the left side of
Yeah.
the picture on the bottom.
Yeah, when you upload it, I'll actually be able to see it in my browser
Okay, 'cause
because
it
it'll
looks
be
dull.
nested and it's okay. Yeah, as long as you have a bold, you have a bold and have something that looks italic and you have a 560 video embedded, we're good. Because when you upload your HTML document to Canvas, that's in a connection, it'll actually show the video in the preview window. So everything will render the way I need it to render. Just know that, remember, local versus IP, right? Connection, FTP. Local sometimes won't render content until I hit the little publish button and it goes out for the world to see it. The good news is Canvas is a live portal. So the minute you upload it, it will, you already gave me one, so I don't even need
Yeah, I was just-
yours, but
Yeah, I was just trying to do it in the junior.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to say, I just did a small. one.
yeah, that's okay. Let's go to live view over there. Let's see if it does render. See that little drop down? Yep, it is on. Yeah, you don't have, it's not rendering an internet connection, but you do see that the video is there. It looks like everything's okay. Let's just double check. Ready for 2022, body's open, body's closed, iframe is in there, you got a fold, you have a nice palette, fold, account, yeah, good, good. Very good. Yeah, okay, so let's save it. Let's just save our page because this is our chapter 2. Remember chapter 1, we're just opening the files up just to take a look at Dreamweaver. Everything that I'm explaining right here as we kind of connect and do different things is the kind of preview of your chapter 1. So we're going to save this one. So let's go File, Save As. Now, when you save it, I like to have your last name somewhere in your file or folder so that I know it's you. So like if we're doing an out of book project and you have a folder, let's say it's called movies because you download the folder that's mine, go ahead in and rename the directory when you're working on it, your main folder, to your last name movies. If you're doing an HTML basic page for me, let's do your last name first web page, just so I have it. I already know yours, you left though, we're good to go. But just as a best practice, when I'm working with a client, I name the root directory the client name. So when I Google it on my computer, I search for it on my computer, I find it very easily. I try to use last names or client names to help catalog my information. So I'm going to do McElroy. Now, what happens if I put a space in my file name?
It won't work.
Well, it'll work, but I don't know if you've ever noticed out there when you're doing URL searches and things like that, you'll see a %20 inside the name of the URL. %20 is a space bar. So that is the code for a space bar. Is it best practice to have extra code embedded in file names? Not really. So just as best practice, when you're naming files, do an underscore. So you see how I just did a basic underscore? Don't do a dot. I know people have done dots before, like their email address is like McElroy.chip@hodges.edu. Dots are just another confusing character in file naming. And I see it everywhere. Every business does it. It's like last name dot and the first 2 letters of your first name at the business. I try to stay away from spaces and dots inside URLs and other things. So either do your last name and then my first web page, all one file name .html, or do last name underscore my first web page. But you need .html, right? You need that extension so that it knows it's a .html page. If you have a thumb drive, save it to your thumb drive. If you don't have a thumb drive, save it to the desktop and give it to me before you leave tonight. Go right into Canvas, click the upload button on chapter 2 and give me this HTML document. In Canvas, it'll preview, I'll see your video, everything will be great. So I'm gonna point to the desktop. Is best practice saving everything to the desktop? No, remember, root directory, the folder. So when we download our folder to open up to play with in a minute, so you can see how Dreamweaver works in a really robust environment, don't save anything to the desktop. Even if you're building your very first web page and you're putting some images and stuff in it, always put it in a folder, because what happens is students then email it to themselves. And can you email a folder to yourself as an attachment? No, what do you have to do to it? Compress it, you have to zip it, right? So when you have a folder, a root directory, and that root directory has HTML files and images and all kinds of stuff in it, you have to zip the root directory. Remember, that folder still has your name, it just becomes your name.zip. When you upload multiple files in Canvas, you need to zip the folder before you give it to me. So like for chapter 2, you're just going to give me .html. Chapter 3 and 4, which are basic wireframe and CSS, you have to zip the folder because everything is inside that folder, and Canvas won't let you just give me a folder. Could you, in theory, give me every file inside that folder, one upload at a time? Well, you could, but the subdirectory, like your images folder, your script folder, would still need to be in a folder. So the best practice in multimedia world is to zip the root directory or the main folder that all your stuff is in. Because when I unzip it, when I double click on it and I open up your index page or any of your pages, does it know that everything exists inside that folder? I double click on your index file inside of your folder after I unzip it. Does it know what's in the images folder? Yeah, everything is pointing based on that one folder. So the same way it works on your computer is how it works on my computer. So when I double click something in your folder, everything pointing to that thing is pointing to everything that exists in that folder. If I take one of those elements and move it outside of that folder and put it on the desktop, will it find it? It won't find it. It has no idea. It's going to make me search my computer for that thing. So sometimes students will zip me a file, but they'll forget half the stuff. And then they'll be like, wait. Let me submit again, because I give unlimited submissions in the projects. You can keep giving it to me every time we edit it. All right, give it to me again, give it to me again, give it to me again. And they'll be like, well, here's all the images that were in the images folder. Well, that's fine, but then I have to open up your last submission, make an images folder, put all your stuff in it, and pray that it works. Because remember, if I'm building the directories secondary, after you give me everything primary, will it work? In most cases, it will. Will Canvas or some upload download process attach something that makes the file a little bit different or weird? There's a possibility of a naming issue or something. So just remember in the brain, if I'm doing a chapter assignment, zip the chapter folder and give it to me. With your last name would be ideal. McElroy chapter 4. I'm going to zip that file and give it to you. Give me everything in the folder of the project. If you give it to me onesies, there's a chance that I might not be able to see something. But you're going to notice when I score it in the rubric and my comment is, I can't see any of your images. I can't do X, Y, or Z. Your wireframe doesn't look right because you didn't give me the template file, and the template file is in the template folder, which is part of the root directory, but you didn't give me the whole directory. You uploaded 9 HTML documents, but I have no script file and no images. So if you have to hit submit a bunch of times, more than likely you didn't give me the right file. I need the one folder that has everything in it. Do you give me the entire chapters 1 through 9 folders every time you upload a chapter assignment? No, I've had students do that. I don't need chapter 1 through 5 if you're only giving me 4. All I need is the zipped folder of chapter 4. As we go through class, I'll actually allow you to give me the out of book project in place of the chapter assignment as we work through the projects, because we're doing the exact same skills if you struggle with something in the chapter. That way we kind of double dip. Some students go through the chapters before the lecture even gets here and they plow right through them, they give them all to me and they get hundreds on all their assignments. Some hiccup in a project step, and then we go to do the lecture and it clicks and they add it to their project. And I tell them, just give me your project, upload it as chapter 4, the whole directory, and then I'll check off that you learned the skill because you did it in the out of book, even though it was step-by-step in the book. So don't get nervous. We're going to learn the process. Some just learn different than others. So I give you flexibility as long as I know You can edit CSS, chapter 4. You understand the elements of wireframe, chapter 3. And actually, both of those things are in our out of book project. So the step-by-step for some is easier than downloading the movies folder and manipulating the stuff, just doing the step-by-step. Their wireframe looks very similar to my wireframe, which is the chapter project. I just made a movies thing. But we do it in most places. So if you if you start going through chapter 4 and you're like, gosh, this CSS is more challenging. But what Chip did as part of his lecture week 1 and finished week 2, I feel much better about. In week 2, you can give me chapter 4 from Learning Module 1 when we're done editing it, and I'll check it off just like you did the project. So some just learn better different ways. So we're going to cover the topics 2 ways: an out of book project and a book project. So whatever's most comfortable for you, but I want to make sure that we actually learn the skill. So don't not do the skill in the out of book and then expect for me to look at it as the chapter 4 submission. I was like, man, they really didn't edit CSS, and the chapter 4 is all about CSS. And yeah, there's a CSS file, but you actually didn't change any of the colors in the actual file I gave you. We want to make sure that you're doing the skill, but you can show it to me in more than one way, step-by-step or out of book. Some run with the out of book and they make like this ridiculous 7-page website. All the colors change, all the text changes, all the images replaced, and it literally is almost every chapter assignment that we did. And I'm like, just upload it for me so I can see all the skills and I'll check off the points. Others plow through the projects in the book, upload them all because they're 45 minutes a piece, typically. And then they do a basic design for the other book. Still checks all the boxes off, but they didn't do as much as they did in the step-by-step. So just know that we're not bypassing that. I want to make sure we're reading and practicing, but you can show me what you learned in more than one way. I just want to make sure that you know what we have going on. All right, so let's save that. And I'm going to give you a minute or two to use the Potty and or give me this file in Canvas if you just want to give it to me right now. So you can just upload it real quick. If you need a potty break, it is 8:30 and I'm probably going to go till close to 9:30 with our lecture. And I try to, by 9 o'clock, have you be able to exhale and figure out whether you have some stuff to do. But tonight I want to go a little bit. So take a potty break. Give me that file, save it to your thumb drive, whatever you have to do to know that you can get it. And before we start up again, if you have a thumb drive, download the chapter files just so you have them and go into the movies announcement and download the movies zip file. Because those 2 things you need for the end of the night. And you also need, we're going to manipulate the movies folder a little bit. So make sure you download those 2 things. If you don't have a thumb drive, download them and we're playing around tonight, but just know that you either have to zip them and email them to yourself, and they're pretty big, or reopen them up at home, save them to a thumb drive, and kind of re-manipulate what we're doing.
I just want a question.
So that's okay. I'm just going back here real quick.
I literally don't know where it is. I never
Okay,
could find
so
it.
go to modules and go to chapter 2 project. What's on there? So each one of these are named. So you just do start assignment and you upload file.
Oh,
And
okay.
so each one is named and you just click on it. So just know when you click on chapter 2, you're giving you the HTML. When you click on chapter 3, you're going to be giving you a zip file. So it's going to be the whole folder.
My question about the training.
Yeah, right here.
I'm thinking you like to say it's download, but that one, it's a 7-day free trial.
7-day trial.
Okay, so this one is already the one you're using.
We're going to be using it all 4 weeks. So,
Yeah.
so it's $9.99 to download it for the 30 days.
Oh, okay.
Or you can use the lab or use the VLab. That's why I put it on the VLab. The students at home will traditionally go to vlab.hodges.edu and you can access the software that way. But for the first week, I would download to your computer and build our project locally here on the computer to start. Well, you have a computer,
Yeah.
so you can put it on there. And then you have it on the computer from Adobe. actually download it for free from Adobe.
So let's make sure I do it. I think the data platform, the Adobe
Oh, we have that.
platform. Well, I did that from
Yeah.
so it says,
Yeah.
so this is what, it has a video. This is yellow, this is green.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But it's gonna take a while to put it on there, so don't do it right now if you're using this as a secondary device, because it's gonna tie up your device for a while it's downloading the application.
Okay. So that one is the night.
Yeah, yep,
Free,
yep,
$9.99.
yep.
Or,
Or
go to the Beeline.
you ask unlodging.edu and you use it from the cloud, that you'll open up in your web browser. So that's number two. So the online students, they either download it for the 30 days or they use the Beeline. Most of the students that come here just come here and use it. So those are the kind of the free ways of access. Because the library, all of the labs, in this lab, all have the same. So that's a choice. So the B lab works fine, just a little bit slower because it's pulling it over the internet. So for the first
Remember you
week,
said
oh,
that
no.
What? Yeah, that's my house.
Yeah.
I also have another question. So like, where, like, okay, so in these, it doesn't tell you like lessons or something that you're supposed to do.
Chapter
I literally
one,
don't know where to- I know you said it didn't have any, but like, where in the world do I have to, because like, even if I look at like
So,
chapter 2.
Yeah, so scroll to my first web page and you're gonna see, wait, right there.
Okay.
you
Oh, so it
see?
says, so.
Yes.
this
There are
lesson-
little,
Oh, it's, wait.
there are little mini step-by-steps inside of the chapter assignment based on the project files that you're downloading from the start here. So you're like, it's like page 22 or something, the page moves a little bit. But that's your basic web page. So this is all about what HTML is, gives you a basic little visual. That's why we build chapter 2 in our actual class assignment. Because they make you do a very rudimentary, don't embed an iframe or anything.
But like, also looking at it, it doesn't tell you to do it. It just,
You
It's a
want us to do
picture.
For chapter 1, you want us to do a screen,
Just a screenshot of the index page,
which is,
which is the file inside of your student file. When you open up chapter 1, and you
chapter 1,
download
because
it.
I zipped it right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. That was somewhere.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you see the index page? Yes. Make sure you read it. The chapter 1 is just an introduction.
And yeah, so I read it. The book is pretty easy. It's
Yeah.
gotta be the easiest we have seen.
There aren't a ton of steps, and it's about 45 minutes for each chapter. Let's just close this one because you have to save it. Right? Save this one already.
I didn't save this one.
So you gave me the
I gave you the other one. So I'll be able to use this again.
And I'm actually going to show you the 3D connection here. So, and then we can put a file open. And this is what we're going to do with the next file. So let's go to chapter 1. Lesson 1 index. And here is my page. Oh, you say your page.
So you would have done- we're gonna manage like. So I just need a screenshot of this. Yeah, any of the pages. Yeah, you could just give me any of the pages as a screenshot.
So we need this. This is also,
Okay.
I literally just screenshot this. Okay, that's what I thought, but it's like I pulled everything up, like I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
followed it
All the
online.
So that's all you.
That's all.
It literally
Okay.
didn't make any sense to me, like I don't understand this.
If I was trying to go, like, if you think I was trying to go through, like, you said, like, go through all the steps, and then I was like, where are the steps?
Yeah, there aren't any.
I normally hide chapter 1
Yeah,
because there isn't an actual action
Hmm.
item.
I kept on looking at it over and over again, I was like, I don't even want to ask questions, I'll wait till, like,
But
till
I'm like,
class.
well, I'll just have you screenshot it, but make sure you read it. I mean.
No, I
Yeah.
had, like, it wasn't like, it
They're
wasn't a
just-
bad read, so I didn't understand what you wanted us to send, I was trying
They're
to.
just
find
Yeah,
it.
because when I saw the first lesson in like the assignments, I was like, where in the world is this?
Yeah,
I was,
the
I
first
didn't-
one
it didn't tell
just-
me how to do it either.
Just screenshot.
Okay,
Page 2 is the basic web page, which you just did.
And so I would screenshot it and then I would like save it. And then I would just,
Give it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, PNG. Yeah, simple PNG. So that I just know that you opened it in Dreamweaver.
okay, yeah,
That's all because right now we're gonna download the movie file and I'm gonna show you what the managed site connection
okay,
in Dreamweaver is. Chapter 1 is just, this is what the software is. That's why I used to hide the chapter 1, but then people would skip it, not read it. So by having it as a submission button, it makes me know that you at least looked at it and opened the file, which means you downloaded the student files, you successfully unzipped them, you successfully opened any of the pages inside chapter 1, and you were able to screenshot it for me. Yeah. Yeah, so just click on that. The start file is the index page, but any of the pages that you can screenshot, I'm fine with. Just, I want to see that you were able to unzip the files and give it to me. And chapter 2 is just the basic web page. That's why I do it as a lecture, because I want to spoon feed the first 2 things to you so that when we get into editing code, that we feel comfortable with unzipping, opening files, and understanding basic HTML. That's why whenever I get any questions before the class starts, I'm like, just let's watch the preview lecture and come to the first so we can spoon feed the start process. So everyone should have chapter 1 and 2, understand the basic submission and be done with them. The book is very easy. I mean, the book is, each chapter is like 45 minutes tops. I mean, it only asks you to edit probably 4 or 5 things in each chapter. But I want you to get comfortable in that process, because sometimes there's going to be a job where they hand you a manual and they just ask you to make something or do something or edit something. So that's why it's good to have a step-by-step, but it's also good to have some files we can manipulate. So chapter 3 in your book is wireframes and chapter 4 is CSS. I've got about 45 minutes. We're going to do wireframes and CSS as our second part of our lecture here. Will we do every edit that we need for chapter 3 and 4? No. You will have to open up this file either in the lab or at home or somewhere else prior to next week to finish your basic edits to give them to me. But we're going to start the process here so that you can see the edits and then you can make the rest of the edits at home. Next week, we're actually going to build your out of book project completely in the class for learning module 1 and 2, because it's a piggyback, it's the same project. So we're actually going to do chapters 1 through 4 and out of book 1 and out of book 2, all in our 2 lectures. The only things we won't do are the chapter assignments for 5, 6, and 7. So just feel comfortable that we're editing all this stuff in our lectures, but I do want you to read and follow along. Some people learn best by reading and
So we
following
start
along.
out of book?
Yes, I would like you as a reinforcer
Okay,
to
so
start
we
the
can
out of
really
book.
start the out of
And if
book.
you do it successfully, give it to me.
Okay.
If you have to wait till next week and we make the rest of the edits we have to make, it's a good backup to give me as secondary. But most students just in an hour and a half do all their book projects and just give them to me. It's what you feel most comfortable with, but I want to be able to check off in my rubric that the outcome was met. So
Okay.
whether you wait to the end of week 2, don't be scared by the due dates because we have all 4 weeks to do the due dates. I have to do due dates each week so that you have a pattern to try to follow. But if you need a little extra time in class, you don't have access to the software, you want to come a little bit early, any of those things, the lab's open, you can come a little early. I want to make sure we get the skills done, whether you do them following along or you do them in the book.
So now we're doing wireframe.
We're
for
doing
chapter 3
wireframe
and 4 project.
And CSS. Yep,
Okay, so we're supposed to click on the module 1.8, chapter 3 and 4 project wireframe.
hold on. We have to download the movie folder out
Yes,
of the announcement section. So let's
Yes.
do that very first. So I'm going to do it with you so that we have the same files. So let me close this. And I can close this because I don't need either of those things. I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go to the announcements. And I'm going to go to the movie template files. And I'm going to download this. Now you're going to notice my zip file has my last name. After we download and unzip it, I want you to name your folder your last name. So we're going to download this file. Now, this folder system, template folder, CSS folder, HTML files, it's the same structure as your book. I actually put 7 videos in your learning module out of book, and I built this project and recorded every single step of it. I'm actually just giving it to you pre-built so that we can deconstruct it. But if you want to see the build process, I put 7 videos inside your out of book in learning module 1, and I literally recorded me building this entire folder of all of these files. In Web 1, it's easier to give and deconstruct. In Web 2, I give assets and we build from ground up. So 1, I spoon feed it. 2, we construct it from the ground up. So just know that's kind of the learning process for some of these micro skills. It's easier to spoon feed it to you a little bit. So here's my folder. So I'm just going to put it on my desktop. Remember that if you're putting it on your desktop, you have to remember either you have a zip to put it in, a thumb drive, or right click it when we're done and compress it or zip it and email it to yourself. This isn't a huge file, so you can email it to yourself, but technology, it's a good idea to have a zip file or a computer with you. You can download it on your computer.
Okay, so you're saying, because I have it all on the thumb drive.
Mhm.
When I save it, like, save it in your method.
Yeah, but you want to change it to your last name. So once you unzip it, go ahead and right click on it and do rename. And I want you to put your last name underscore movies so that when you give it back to me and I download it on my computer, I have every student in my class. So I actually make a folder for this class and I put every student's submissions in my folder. That's why the last name is good, so that I can file everything via the last name. Are we okay? All right, good. All right. All right. So when we do our connection to Dreamweaver and you see how it catalogs all the files, you'll know that having your last name is a good idea, because if it was a client, it'll save it as the client name. If it's your last name, it'll save it as your last name, just so that you can kind of see the relationship. So unzipping and renaming, good process, because you're going to have to do that. People are always going to email you attachments and stuff. It's the nature of the beast. But notice if it's a .zip, that it has to be unzipped with WinZip or whatever the process is your computer does for unzipping it. But you should have a folder with your last name underscore movies, because that's your out of book folder. And it's also your folder that shows the skills from chapter 3 and 4. Now, we won't get to all of them tonight. I'm compressing it in because I'm going to have to pick it up next week. We'll continue to edit next week for our out of book project, because I won't be able to get it all in.
so this is the out of book one then?
Yes, out of book. Yep. Yeah, you'll actually see in the description, it says movies, make 5 pages, blah, blah, blah. This is the entire assignment. We just now have to edit it so that I can see it's your last name with your favorite movies and your color scheme and your things. If I see all of my movies, I'm gonna think, man, we're very common people. We like a lot of the same things.
So when I extract as unzipping
Uh-huh.
and I put it into the folder renamed it my name, and then it still has
Great.
the movies you have in here.
It will until we
But
edit it.
We'll work on changing it.
We
then.
will work on changing.
Okay.
Yeah, everything that's in there is mine. We're gonna replace all that stuff with yours. We're gonna replace text tonight. We're gonna replace images next week.
Oh.
So all the images will be replaced next week. We're only gonna look at code tonight, because remember, chapter 3 is wireframe, which is the basic structure of the page, and chapter 4 is CSS. Remember, CSS is a style sheet. CSS is code. CSS is language that makes things look a certain way. And that's what we're going to do tonight. I have it all built already in the zip file. We're going to go in and manipulate. Trust me, it's not going to look like mine by the time we're done. Good or bad. It might, have some issues, but that's okay too. So it won't end up looking like mine. I do have students sometimes submit something and the color scheme's exactly the same as mine. And I'm like, we went into the CSS. I know you like dark blue, but could you have made it light blue so that it's not the exact same blue that I used, right? Okay, so everyone should have it unzipped, should have their last name and the file name. Remember, that's our root directory, our public HTML folder. Everything has to stay in that folder. It's the same as your chapter assignments. If you're working on chapter 3, I need chapter 3 all in that folder, not the little pieces that go to chapter. I always have a student submit just the HTML file. I can't see the pictures. I can't see the code. I can't see any of the stuff. From this project forward, I have to have a zip file, not individual files. I need everything that's in the folder you're working on so that I can see it the way you see it. The same way as you're working on that computer and you have a laptop. If you move it from that computer to the laptop, it has to be together. If it's disjointed and you save some stuff on that machine and some stuff on another machine, you're not going to see it the same. So just know, best practice going forward. If I'm not submitting a zip file, I'm doing something wrong, because everything is zipped together so I can see everything. Yes, do I have the same chapter 3 folder as you? Yes. Do I have all the same assets that you have? Yes. Do I have pretty much the same root directory as you? Yes. But if you give it to me independently, I have to put it in my folder and pray that the relationship in your HTML file is exactly the same as the relationship in my HTML file. Should it be? Yes. Is it always? No. Because remember, everything is linked and everything has a really long name, like my computer / McElroy movies / images folder / whatever movie I like, monk.jpg, right? And I like Monk. Has anyone seen Monk? That's a great TV show. Right? So that
Oh, the
relationship,
TV show,
yeah, that relationship is unique to me. So even if you give me monk.jpg and say, well, just put it in the images folder, that's fine. But your original folder wasn't named McElroy movies. It was Smith movies or Jones movies. Well, you know what I mean? So the relationship is broken because the original root directory was not the same as mine. So just know that everything gets zipped from this day forward. Print screen for chapter 1, fine, so that I can see you opened it in Dreamweaver and you at least read the chapter. Number 2, my first webpage.html, we built it together. And there's no assets in chapter 2 of your zip folder. It's literally empty. It's empty because it wants you to write the basic HTML that we did. So you already did that. So screenshot 1, give me my first webpage.html 2. Chapter 3 and 4 is what we're doing as part of our movies lecture. If you want to go crazy between now and next week and do the 45-minute projects and give them to me because you want to check them off and be done with them, and you're like, oh, I'm done, please do. If you want to do them and you're not overly confident and you want to wait till next week to finish the second part of the lecture and give me the movie zip for 3 and 4, as long as you edit everything like we start this week, you can do that too. Some like to check it off and be done. Others like to wait till week 3.5 and check everything off. Whatever works for you, but we're going to build a 5-page website by the end of these 4 weeks. And you are going to give me a completed 5-page website at the end of these 4 weeks. We can get there a lot of different ways. Just be comfortable with, we're writing code we're building web pages, and we're submitting a completed client assignment. So I give you something to deconstruct. There's a lot of different ways to then construct it. Okay, awesome. So everyone has it downloaded. Know it if it's on the zip file, know if it's on the desktop, know where it's located, where you saved it. Because when we go into Dreamweaver, we have to make a connection between the software and the folder. That is what's called a local directory connection. That local directory connection is the relationship between the computer and the client. When we click publish to Amazon Web Services or wherever we're hosting it, we're taking that connection and changing the point from computer to folder to cloud IP address and folder. So all we're doing is rotating the needle from local connection to remote connection. We're going to work in local connection so that you can see the relationship and actively edit it. Can you edit in Dreamweaver from a remote location? The files exist on the IP address in a folder, a root directory, the same folder you have on your local computer. All the files exist in that folder. They just sit on Amazon's computer, not your computer, and you're opening up the file on Amazon's computer on your computer to edit it. You can, yeah, you can edit it remotely. Why that's not a good idea? If you make an error on the remote file, is the world going to see that? Yeah, it's sitting out in your IP address. So if you make an error in the live file, the world will see it. Why do errors happen on CNN.com? It's because they're they're actually working on a local connection, but they're only working on pieces of the whole. And when they hit publish, it goes up and some piece doesn't exist, or it's broken, or they don't do the whole folder every time. They do file by file, edit by edit. Well, there's always a chance some error is going to happen when you're doing piece by piece. We edit locally all together. We publish remotely all together. When I work with a client, even if they ask me to update the address on their contact page, I hit upload all. I upload the whole site again so that I can make sure that it works locally and everything's going to work remotely. I don't edit just one file and re-upload it. In today's connectivity, it's so fast. Uploading an entire folder versus one little file, it still happens like this. So is it instant in the browser if you make the edit and hit upload? If I upload to chip.com and I make some changes locally and I upload it and I type in chip.com, am I going to see it immediately?
Like a half an hour.
It takes about 7 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the refresh rate on most connections is about 7 seconds. If you're building a website new and you want it to be found by the spiders, the Google search engine, they say it takes up to 12 weeks.
Oh, wow.
For it to find. Most, for me, within a week or two, clients are being found. Also remember that when you put something new, it takes a while for the hits to start cataloging. So things that have existed a long time tend to be higher than the new things, unless you have a very unique new thing. Like I helped a lady build a Pilates studio website. She was like the only one in her city. The minute that thing went live, within like 7 days, she was #1 on every search engine if you did Pilates near me. She was the only one. So she immediately went to the top. If there were 30 of them, the 29 that existed before her would be above her until she started getting hits and activity and more usage. The longer people spend, the more you move up, because that time clock helps to stamp your activity. So a lot of factors go into it, but just know if you refresh, it's about a 7-second refresh. If you make something and put it up and you make an edit and your client's like, well, let me see. And you're like, refresh, refresh, refresh. And remember the cookies, the history of your browser tries to remember the old stuff. So it's the refresh of the connection that replaces the old with the new. I worked for an engineering firm and we did everything online, and I had to send something out. And the president was like, I keep seeing the old. I'm like, oh my God. I'm gonna get fired. And I'm like, just refresh your computer. I waited about 10 seconds. I was like, just refresh your computer. Phone rings. Yeah, it looks good. And I'm like, right? It takes a few seconds for the browser to catch up. Cookies, they always want to remember the old. That's why passwords, usernames, passwords, all that stuff gets stored out there. You know, it wants to save the old. So it takes a little bit, 7 seconds or so, but it does take 7 days solid for something to be found when you publish it in the analytics of search engines. Google's the most popular, and you can actually pay to embed Google Analytics, and it will adjust you and make modifications. And the free version still tells you all about your web page, who's going there, how long they're going, what page they're going to. There's some really great things that happens behind the scenes. Just know it takes like a week minimum to catalog that. I've been told before up to 7 weeks, but
Holy
I've seen
mackerel.
things happen quicker than that.
I just said holy mackerel.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a while. People think it's instantaneous. It's not instantaneous. There's over 14 billion web pages. Think about how long it takes for that connection to spin and for people to find stuff. I mean, it takes a while. All right, so everyone has their file. They renamed it. It's on their computer. They know where it is. It's their thumb drive. It's the desktop. It's somewhere where you know where it is. And it's unzipped. So it does not say .zip on it. It is a folder that you can physically see. All right, so let's go to Dreamweaver. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close my files so that I have an empty thing going on here, right? There's no documents or anything. Your book has you do a connection between Dreamweaver and your root directory, your folder. It's called a site connection. And you do that under the site dropdown. So you see the site dropdown right here. What makes Dreamweaver such a powerful tool is it allows you to interact in a web page environment locally the same way you would do remotely. It just lets you do it locally, so there's the safety of not editing something that's live for the world to see. Okay, all right, so we're gonna do new site. And you're gonna see this little box that pops up. And this box is telling you, hey, you wanna make a site connection between a root directory folder and Dreamweaver, so that Dreamweaver knows every file and how it relates inside of that folder. What Dreamweaver's doing is it's building a catalog between your HTML files and any images or text that relate to that particular document. Creates a connection between the two. So we're going to create a connection. Once we create that connection, your computer will actually remember that site connection. And every time you go in Dreamweaver, if it was your own personal computer, you would see a list of all of the client connections you've made locally on your computer. That's called a site managed site. So if I had connections and I went to site managed site, it would tell me. So when I go to my home computer, every client I've ever built a website for that I have directories for are saved inside my Dreamweaver application. And I can go to that site connection and it will pull it up locally. I don't have to keep downloading and pulling and changing. As long as I put those folders somewhere, external drive that I plug in the computer, Dreamweaver will remember that relationship. So this is a site connection. This is what you do in Dreamweaver. So let's name it. So I'm just going to name it my last name and movies 2022 under the site name. Remember, this is just for Dreamweaver, so it knows the client. So if I was doing Domino's, I would name it Domino's. If I was doing McDonald's, I would name it McDonald's. If I was doing Betty's Florist, I would name it Betty's Florist. It is only for Dreamweaver to catalog the client. It has nothing to do with things that are actually appearing. It's just the site name for a directory purpose, cataloging purpose. So I use the client. And I try to use the client in the year if it's something new. Like if it's a new client, I name it Domino's 2021. So I know I built the thing in 2021 for Domino's. I try to use the client in a year. Sometimes I micromanagement and I do it the client, the month, and the year if I'm really trying to break it down. But don't name it something obscure, because then when you go to look at the computer, like, what is I Love Donuts? It's my site for Domino's. Who would have never guessed that? Like, right? So try to make sure you know that it's a connection you'll remember. Now we're making a local connection. So the only thing we have to do is name the client and connect the folder. So you're going to see right here, it's called local site folder. That is your public HTML, your root directory, your main folder. If I was connecting for chapter 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, I would name it Dreamweaver chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5 as my site name. So that way the directory shows what I'm connecting to. And then I would point it to the chapter folder, the whole folder of the thing that I'm previewing or viewing. When I did it here with you guys and you did it, you just went right to the HTML file. File open, go find the HTML file and click it. Did it open and preview and you saw it all? It did. Yeah, there were no broken links or anything because you opened it inside of the root directory, so everything was contained. That's fine. But best practice is, now that you know, is to actually make a connection. That way Dreamweaver knows all the relationships, the templates, the CSS, the JavaScript, any fonts that are embedded, everything is connected. So let's click the little folder next to here. And we need to find the folder that you named, your last name _ movies. So I'm going to go here, and here's my McElroy movies. Now, all of these other tabs over here on the left-hand side have to deal with our remote connection. We're only doing a local connection right now. So we're just naming the site for directory purposes and connecting it to the public HTML or the root folder. Those two things are really important from a local thing. In cloud service world, as far as hosting goes, you can click on a folder and click and upload to your public HTML. And nowadays you can drag and drop. I mean, you don't even have to do some of this manual process. You can just drag it in the web browser and drop the file here, or drop the folder here. You can open up the public HTML folder and you can see all the stuff and drag it. We're in a drag and drop world. Everything is touchscreen now. This manual process is a good way to see and manage files. So that's why we do it this way. Okay, so pick your folder. I'm going to click save. And if you're in standard view over here, so I'm just in regular old standard view, you should have this thing up here with all the local files. Is this out for the world to see? If we edit, change it, modify it, save it, does the world see it? If we edit, modify, and change it in Dreamweaver right here, does it change on your thumb drive, on your desktop, the file itself? Yes, this is just a relationship. So if we edit it in Dreamweaver, it's still changing it on your thumb drive or your desktop. This is just the connection view. If you go to Amazon Cloud Services and you have a hosting account and you go into the back end, username and password, and you go into your hosting space and you double click in the window that says public HTML, will you see this? Yes, all this is a local copy of what would exist out for the world to see. The only difference is we're editing it locally, we're viewing it locally, we're interacting with it locally. If we did this and we're like, man, this web page is great, I'm going to copy the link out of the browser and send it to my sister so she can open it, will she be able to see it? No, it's local. So even in the browser, when we preview it and we look at it and we're like, man, this is the greatest thing I've ever created in my life, no one else can see it unless you print screen or you upload it to a hosting environment. So you actually have an IP address, a URL. It's got to be out for the world to see, for everyone to see it, unless you mail them your computer. Hey, open up this file, it looks great. This is only local, but it's a reflection of what would be out on a hosting site if we were actually take all these files and put them in the public HTML folder. The last name _ movies is the public HTML folder. So if I was to take all the files and put them out for the world to see, I would have to take everything inside of my McElroy's movie and upload all of this to my IP address. So the client folder name is the name of my root directory. So it's just everything inside of it needs to be there so that if I did publish it for the world to see, they get everything. If I'm editing a WordPress site or Wix or Squarespace, I mean, there's a million of them out there now. And I go in and I log into my username and password for WordPress, and I go to my home page and I change everything on there, and I click publish. Am I actually changing the index page back in the root directory on WordPress? If I'm opening the page and I'm editing it using my username, password, and I hit publish, which means the world's going to see it, am I actually editing an actual HTML page? Yeah, I am. The only difference is in the web environment, these new companies creating these sites that you can edit from your browser. The only difference is it's removing this. This is what's intimidating to people. Oh my God, look at all these files. I'm never going to be able to do this. That's the thing I always get weak on. I'm never going to be able to do this. Can you help me? There's just no way I'm ever going to be able to do this. Because they look at this and they're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this, right? WordPress, Wix, GoDaddy, Squarespace, all these places that let you set up a username and password and edit it like you would do in Word, a picture and text, and you just click on it and change it. It's doing exactly what this is. It's just removing this, which is what's intimidating to 95% of people. This is intimidating. Clicking on a picture that says upload new picture, you click on the upload button, you go to your computer and say, oh, chip.jpg, and click it in. Chip.jpg goes onto my page and it looks great. I'm smiling and waving, right? I did put my picture in the images folder on that change. The only difference is here, I have to physically put the picture in the images folder and then change it over here to make it happen. In WordPress world, I click on the picture as an image and it says upload new, drag and drop here, right? You take the picture and you drag it and all of a sudden the world sees something new and you're like, I'm a genius. Well, you are, because you knew what was going to happen by doing it, but you didn't have to do it this way. So the beauty about a web design course is it's teaching you what's happening behind the scenes, and you're learning to appreciate that what you see and do from a web-based application is much more difficult. It's just easy because they made this look like a picture. Everything's drag and drop it here, drag and drop it here. Click the text, hit the B for bold. Well, you click the B button for bold, it's actually a B tag going in the front and back of those words. You're just clicking a little character palette that says B, and that happens. It happens in Word, right? You highlight a word and click on the B and it makes it bold. Behind the scenes of a Word document is script that's B tag open, B tag close, change that word. All that stuff's happening. The software just makes it really easy for you. So web design used to be very intimidating. It looked like this and everyone's like, I'm never going to be able to do this. And web designers are charging $25,000 a website because they're like, no one can do this. They're intimidated. I should get paid for it, right? Now it's like, I don't need someone to create a website for me. I'm going to go to Wix.com. I'm going to pick a template. I'm going to take some pictures with my iPhone of my dog and make a dog website, drag and drop them into the little menus, change it to rover.com, and I have a website. Well, you do technically. You do. You bypassed all of this. Where the value is knowing what all this is so that you can maximize drag and drop. You can tell the difference between someone that knows fundamental web design and someone that just opened a page and drag and drop stuff and just made changes and everything looks okay, right? So that's the process. I'm just teaching you the process so that if you have the opportunity to edit an employer's website, build a newsletter that they want to email out, and they may want to use a very simple web-based tool, Constant Contact, to send out an email. Everyone uses it. It's a couple of dollars a month, but you have to know what an image pixel size is, how to put it in the template, what's happening when you click publish, so that when it goes out for the world to see, it's correct. So that's the process we're learning here. So don't be intimidated by this. We're going to edit all of this and know that the light at the end of the tunnel is that there are also web-based tools that makes what we're doing here a more drag and drop environment. And it's scary. My iPad has website builders. I could build one on my phone right now if I wanted to. They have templates, they have tools, they have apps. Everything is built right here and it's very easy for me. The beauty about education and learning the history and process of web is it all started here. So when you make a change, you know the right file format, you know what works well, you know why it's responsive, you know all the elements, so you can A, do it correctly, and B, if it breaks, you know how to fix it. Our new website at Hodges was built like this in a responsive bootleg environment through Dreamweaver, responsive build, and it's not tied to WordPress, which is what our old site was. Even though WordPress was a very easy to tool and it worked for us for years, having the ability to control every aspect of your site because it isn't tied to a tool that you paid for is nice too. So ours is built in Bootstrap, which is actually a responsive template environment inside Dreamweaver that does everything WordPress does, but you have to edit the files. It does not do it in a drag and drop environment. So hopefully you grow an appreciation. In the end, you might use Squarespace and build a 5-page website and be like, look at this thing, it's freaking beautiful. Like everyone would buy my widget because I built it here. I would say 50% of the class will love the editing process and edit the HTML files. I mean, it is very rewarding to change something and have it be something new and actually work. Like, oh my God, the colors changed, the name changed, and everything is functional. Okay, so everyone should have a connection. So we have made a connection, a file connection between your root directory, which is the public HTML folder, and your computer. That relationship only has the pendulum swing if we were to publish it. If I, when I did site new site, set up the server connection, which was the second tab on the left-hand side, I would have a publish arrow next to local files. And if I hit that thing, the world will see it in 7 seconds. We don't need to be doing that quite yet, because if you hit that, it's like a train wreck. You're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Right? But there is a connection to be built between Dreamweaver. But remember, the connection is the IP address with a username and password, not a URL. That unique IP address is what the relationship between the remote connection and your server is. Okay, beautiful thing. All right. So if your folder isn't exploded or expanded, you can click this little triangle right here, this little caret, and it will explode it out. Remember, the top folder is your site folder named for your client, in this case, your last name and movies, and everything inside of there is what's your public HTML folder. Every individual folder under this folder is called a subdirectory. When you do chip.com/images/monk.jpg, it's that folder with a monk.jpg image inside of it, right? These are subdirectories. So when you see a really long URL, there's lots of subdirectories. There's lots of babushka dolls inside of babushka dolls. Like it's images / the greatest colors / high resolution / that's just folders inside of folders. Is it good to have a bunch of folders? Well, it's good for organization, but it makes URLs really long. If you ever copied some URLs and paste them to send them to a friend or something, they're like 8,000 characters long. And you're like, oh my God, what are they doing? It's because they have a long URL, bunch of subdirectories, and they have file names that are really long. That's how you get that really long character. Everyone worried at the turn to the year 2000 that if you had too many characters in all your computer stuff, it would start choking because of the change of the year, and it didn't happen that way. But for best practices, try to keep things compact, and we will in this class. We won't go below a subdirectory. So we won't go below an images folder or a script folder or a template folder or anything like that. But we could have a script folder and inside of it have a CSS folder, and inside of that have JavaScript. I mean, we could have multiple folders, but we're going to keep it very simple. So public HTML, all the files with subdirectories. The most common ones are script or CSS, images, and templates. There is a triangular relationship of web design in Dreamweaver. The triangular relationship is very similar if you were using PowerPoint. You have your HTML file that is tied to a template. So if you're using WordPress or Wix or Squarespace, they're templates you pick visually, right? You go in there and you're like, oh, I like the white template, I'm going to pick that one. The only difference is we have a template folder, and inside of there is a local template that we built versus a web template that you pick by signing up for Wix or GoDaddy or any of those. Same scenario. So you have a template, which is also known as a master. So if you were in PowerPoint, you had a master slide, your template is your master, and a script folder of some kind, a script file. So you have your HTML file, you have your template, and you have script. Those three files are what are communicating to create the thing that you see. The HTML file, the wireframe, is built by a template. The template is top and bottom and body. So header, footer, and body or content. I like to tell students the top piece of bread is the header, where you see the logo and the buttons and all that stuff. The bottom piece of bread is what we call the crumbs or the copyright and the stuff you see at the bottom of the page. And then the PB and J is the content in the middle. So a template is just that, the header, the crumbs, AKA the footer, and a space holder for the content. That's all a wireframe is. So when you see chapter 3 wireframe, the only thing they're talking about is the header and the footer and the organization of the content. And we call those columns. That's all it's talking about in chapter 3, header, footer, and body or content area. Chapter 4 in your book is talking about the CSS or the code that makes the page look a certain color, size, shape, the formatting of that box. So the wireframe is the template, it's the box. The code, in this case, the CSS, is the look of the box. So that's the only difference. Those three elements interact. So the wireframe, the box of the website, and the code, the color and shape of the box, those two elements dictate the look of the HTML page, right? Wireframe is the template, the top piece of bread and the bottom piece of bread. Oh, oh. Oh. So let's see what's going on here. We're gonna go up the side right here, just to make sure that we have to go out. There's all the chat windows. Hey gang, sorry, the smoke detector went off and they booted us out immediately. So thank you for staying online. You probably heard the beeping going. Sorry about that. So I sent the students home and I'm going to finish the lecture for Dreamweaver next week. So please, for homework, just read chapters 3 and 4 and we'll pick up where we left off. You should be able to submit chapters 1 and 2 from the lecture. So we'll pick up 3 and 4 next week. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for staying on. We were literally just let back in by the fire department. So sorry about that. Yeah, you could download the trial for 7 days. So this weekend, download it so you have it for next week. And then we can do the first 4 chapter assignments, the out of book assignment, that's week 1 and 2. And that'll get you through a big bulk of it. So I would do that. Are you local?
Yes, sir.